Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Chicago Board of Education meeting. Today is January 24th, 2018. We're holding today's meeting in the boardroom at 42 West Madison Street. I'm Frank Clark. On behalf of my fellow board members, I want to thank everyone for coming today. Our order of business will be as follows. We'll have honor and excellence. We'll have the CEO report. We'll go and have public participation, followed by an executive session, followed by returning to voting. I'm going to take this opportunity to mention we have a very, very, very large audience for a group of speakers for public participation, and today it is extraordinarily appreciated if we hold our time to the 2 minutes, so we allow everyone to have a chance to speak. More on that. And as always, I asked, because there are going to be a lot of, I think, very different and strong views expressed today, that courteous behavior is frankly appreciated. Madam Secretary, please lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting of Wednesday, January 24th, 2018 is hereby called to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Member Furlong?
Present.
Vice President Guzman?
Present.
Member Ward?
Present.
President Clark?
Present.
4 members present. There is a quorum, and I would also like to recognize Dr. Janice Jackson, the acting CEO, Douglas Henning, our acting general counsel, Latonya McDade, Chief of Teaching and Learning Officer, and Elizabeth Keening, Chief Officer for Diverse Learners. I also would like to acknowledge William Cryer, our honorary student board member, and our shadow student this month, Jonathan Lee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As the Secretary just spoke, we have a new shadow student with us today. William, would you please introduce him?
Yes, I would. Thank you, President Clark. Today we are joined by Jonathan Lee. He's a junior at Northside College Prep. Jonathan, would you like to say a few words? I'm sorry.
First, I would like to thank President Clark and the members of the board for this opportunity.
No, don't take it personally. It's okay.
Just a little bit about myself. I'm a member of the CPS Student Advisory Council. I'm also interning for On the Money magazine, which is a nonprofit organization created by the Economic Awareness Council, which seeks to promote financial literacy in predominantly low-income areas across the city. And I'm also a chess instructor and tutor. I'm honored to be part of this board meeting, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to start now with honoring excellence, and Latonya, I think in your new role, you're going to lead us off.
Yes. Good morning, and thank you, President Clark. As the board president mentioned, I am Latonya McDade, and if approved by the Board of Education, I will have the privilege of serving you as your new Chief Education Officer. Like our acting CEO, I too have spent my life in CPS, beginning as an elementary school student at both Guggenheim and Beasley Elementary, and a proud graduate of Whitney Young High School. I began my career as an educator in CPS nearly 20 years ago and served as a teacher, assistant principal, network chief, and most recently, chief officer of teaching and learning. My time in CPS has shown me the endless promise in all of our students. I am humbled and honored to be considered to serve on this team to help create high-quality educational opportunities for every child in Chicago Public Schools. It will be my mission to build on current academic gains and continue the forward progress this district has made in preparing students for college, career, and civic life. We begin every Board of Education meeting by recognizing the accomplishments of our students and school communities. To open our meeting today, I am pleased to welcome the concert choir from Westinghouse College Prep, which will be performing songs that have a theme of racial equity and social justice. Thank you, Westinghouse students, for using your talents to spread the message of peace and hope. This is yet another way that our students are honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the month of January. Several of our schools also participated in service projects last Monday in honor of Dr. King's birthday, and others spent the day learning how we can work together to bring about change in our communities. Please help me welcome the Westinghouse Concert Choir along with their director, Mr. Arthur Griffin.
President Clark, Interim CEO Jackson, Chief Education Officer McDade, and the entire Board of Education. It's an honor to be here this morning. I'd like to take a moment to share a few thoughts on our new interim CEO before I introduce our wonderful Westinghouse Choir. As many of you know, Dr. Jackson was my mentor principal while I was a resident principal at Westinghouse through the UIC Urban Education Leadership Program 5 years ago. Under her mentorship, I quickly realized that she values the development of teachers, staff, students, parent groups, community, and in my case, principals. She's forward-thinking, strategic, and values and understands the interests of others for the best possible outcomes for students. Dr. Jackson had the vision for the foundation of Westinghouse that has led to our success today. While opening Westinghouse, she formed a partnership with Northwestern Medicine, the NM Scholars. The partnership set the standard for what is needed in schools today, with support of world-leading physicians and the executive leadership at Northwestern. Today, 100% of our NM scholars are thriving in some of the best colleges and universities, such as Stanford, Penn, and the University of Chicago. And Dr. Jackson's first class of NM scholars will graduate college this year. Today, Westinghouse is made up of 1,200 students, 90% minority, 81% low income, and the class of 2017 earned a 96% four-year grad rate and $35 million in scholarships. 93% of those graduates enrolled in college, and 86% of those in a four-year college. Today, Westinghouse is ranked the number 36 best high school in all of Illinois. Most recently, under Dr. Jackson's leadership as Chief Education Officer, there's been an increase in graduation rates, college enrollment, scholarship dollars, and test scores across the district. Now, people are looking to Chicago to figure out how to improve urban districts all across the country, and rightly so. Dr. Jackson has my deepest admiration and love, and I know I speak for principals across CPS when I say that I am proud and honored that she is leading our district. Now, please join me in giving a very big welcome to our founding choir teacher, Mr. Arthur Griffin, and our Westinghouse Warrior Choir in collaboration with Gallery 37, who will sing Heal the World by Michael Jackson. Thank you.
Heal the
As the young people leave, I want you to know that we had a few technical difficulties when you started,
Yes,
but
sir.
your voices were perfect. So we really enjoyed you.
Thank you again to the phenomenal Westinghouse Scholars for your performance. Thank you to their director, Mr. Arthur Griffin, and their phenomenal principal, Principal McGill. Again, it is truly an honor of a lifetime to be afforded the opportunity to serve the district in this new capacity. I would like to personally thank the board for their consideration of my appointment, and there is no one I would rather work alongside than Dr. Jackson. She has proven herself to be an incredible leader and a fierce advocate for our students and our schools. I would like to now turn things over to Dr. Jackson for the CEO report.
Yeah. Thank you, Latonya. I wish I had a couple of extra minutes just to get this knot out of my throat, but looking at the students from Westinghouse and just seeing them represent all the things that matter to me. Number one, scholarship. Number two, the importance of self-expression through the arts or through written and oral communication, but more importantly, the diversity and the fact that Westinghouse continues to be one of the top schools in the city, also in the state, as the Principal McGill pointed out. It's just an honor to have served them. Let me first start by saying I'm humbled and honored to serve as the acting CEO for Chicago Public Schools. And as the board considers my official appointment today, I want to thank you and just express extreme gratitude for this opportunity. Not many times do you get to sit in this place where you actually realize a dream. It has been reported that I believe at the age of 24, I stated at that time that I wanted to be the CEO of Chicago Public Schools. And after chatting with one of my fellow colleagues, a teacher, just a couple of weeks ago when the announcement was made, he, told me, which I've been told time and time again, that he thought I was crazy because what teacher would say that they wanted to be the CEO of Chicago Public Schools? And although some people may think that this was a fast track, I actually think that the work that I've done over the past almost 20 years as an educator here in this district speaks volumes about my ability to lead this district. From my first days as in Head Start at Cook Elementary to my high school experience at Hyde Park Academy to my teaching position as a history teacher at South Shore Community Academy at the time, and as many teachers have, serving through many different reforms, almost every reform that was possible during that time, to having the ability to open 2 high schools, both serving students on the west side and creating opportunities that did not exist prior to us creating those schools. And then finally, as the chief ed officer, and being able to oversee many of the policies that have led to the many accolades that the district has received both locally and also nationally. All of my prior experiences in the district, along with being a CPS parent, have shaped my view of our school system and have helped me understand what is necessary to continue this incredible progress. As we move forward, the district's work continues to be grounded in 3 key commitments that are laid out in our 3-year strategic vision. First, continuing with the academic progress that the district has experienced. Second, ensuring that the district is financially stable. And third, improving the integrity and public trust of Chicago Public Schools. By holding true to these commitments, we will ensure that Chicago has the quality school system that it deserves. But no role in CPS better prepares me than being a CPS parent. Know that in the CEO, you have somebody who has experienced the district and owes all of my success to Chicago Public Schools. But I look at it through the lens of a parent, which is critically important. I want to thank all of the families and community members who participated in our recent community meetings regarding topics such as school actions, as well as how to improve our schools overall. Know that as I transition that I am prepared to continue the positive momentum that the district has made academically, but also address some of the more topical issues and also more difficult issues that our city faces. Most notably, the school actions, which I'm sure parents and community members will talk about today, school enrollment, as well as the recent reforms to special education. While we may disagree sometimes on policy and how to get there, we do agree on one common goal: ensuring that children receive the best experience possible in our schools. And I firmly believe that while working together, we will make this happen. My commitment is to work the way that I've always worked as a school leader, which is with transparency and integrity. We are so fortunate, I'm so fortunate to be starting at this time. The district is on a much stronger financial footing, allowing schools to operate without the fear of mid-year budget cuts and furlough days. If accepted by the board, we will release our comprehensive annual financial report for FY17 later today, which details our financial outcomes from the prior fiscal year. During FY17, our schools dealt with a great degree of uncertainty due to the unresolved state funding issues. But today, our financial outlook is stronger. We have new, more equitable revenue from the state, which has allowed us to refinance debt and improve our financial situation. It also means that we can provide principals with their budgets this spring, which is something that I'm really excited to do. Principals need their budgets early to do adequate planning, but they also need their budgets so that they can align them to the continuous improvement work plan, which we all know is best practice. CPS is on a better path, and we will work diligently to stay there. Ensuring that we stay on track depends on much more than just me, and I'm privileged to work alongside a talented leadership team in support of the district's incredible principals and teachers who are driving that progress every day in our schools. As CEO, I will work with our teachers and principals to provide high levels of support so that all students can reach their potential. I just don't mean the highest performers. I mean students who come to us with language barriers, students living in poverty, children who live in tough and violent neighborhoods, as well as those who come to us with diverse learning needs. I know many people have questions about our special education program, and that's why we're strengthening supports for diverse learners, and that's a top priority for me. Our district took steps in recent years to address some of the long-standing national issues with regard to special education in our district. And I've said on record, and I'll say today, that in many cases we did too much too quickly. And as a result, we've begun adjusting policies, and we have asked the state to conduct a public inquiry that reviews the reforms that we've made. It's important to note that this is a public inquiry, not an investigation. And CPS is seeking this inquiry for one reason and one reason only: to identify the things that need to happen in order to improve special education services in our district. And I've made public my commitment to make any and all necessary changes that are identified throughout that process. I think it's appropriate to have the governing agency, ISB, who has oversight over Chicago Public Schools, take a look at all of our practices instead of litigating this through the media. I also believe the key to strengthening special education programming is better relationships with our parents. Our board has said time and time again that they want to hear improvements around special education because of some of the comments that they've heard from parents at our board meetings. That's why we're creating a new special education parent advisory council and hiring additional parent advocates to support families who are seeking the proper resources for their children. This is a direct response to parent input about how we can better communicate and become more transparent. Those parent advocates themselves will be parents of students with special needs, and they will serve as a liaison to support parents who have difficulty and want to make sure their children are receiving all of the services that they should be provided. I would like to now introduce Liz Keenan, the Chief Officer for CPS's Office of Diverse Learners and Students with Disabilities, who will provide an update on how CPS will continue to improve specialized services throughout the city. It's also important to note that this is one of many steps that I will be taking to reform special education for Chicago Public School students with disabilities. Liz?
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Thank you, directors of the Board of Education, and thank you, CEO, our acting CEO, CEDO, for Chief Education Officer Latonya McDade. I want to give you all of us an update on where we are at currently with our reforms in terms of special education. As Dr. Jackson noted, we are committed to making sure that we are ensuring that we are supporting our students. There are some things that we are needing to make sure that we are creating systems across our system in special education, but ultimately we want to make sure it's better and that we're making our academic supports in special education a better opportunity for all of our students. Our mission right now is the same mission for special education as it is for CPS. We want to make sure that we are making academic progress. We want to make sure that we're ensuring that we have financial stability, and we are also wanting to make sure that we have integrity. And all three of these things are looking at, we are embedding those into the reforms that we're looking at that we've already taken to, and movement into place with over the last year and even into this current year. I want to start with our presentation, kind of giving us some level setting around some of the data. We've heard a lot about where special education in terms of the numbers, and CPS is the third largest district in the United States. It's the largest district in the state of Illinois. It has 50,000 or 51,000, close to 51,000 special education students. We saw a slight decrease from last year to this year in special education, but it didn't decrease as fast as our overall population. So when we look at that, we want to make sure that we are looking to support our students with special need, and we're allowing to support that process of evaluation, but we're not seeing that large decrease in terms of what's actually happening with the general education population, so it should have seen some sort of a decrease. We did see a slight decrease in the number of teachers from last year to this year, so there's about a difference of 26 teachers. However, we increased our paraprofessionals from last year to this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that process during the budgeting process for this last year. So the big things around that we initiated 2 years ago, prior to me even coming into CPS, 2 years ago there was initiated of guiding uniform guidelines. We wanted to make sure that there was some uniformity in how decisions are being made. We did hear from our families that decisions being made at one school may vary and look different at other schools. Resources were also varied too. And we want to make sure that we are deciding on the supports of students in a consistent manner, that one school receives more additional supports than another school, and one student receives additional supports more than other students. But we all want to make sure that the IEP is driving that process. Early interventions is the key, and that is really under IDEA, which is the federal law on special education. We have to make sure that we're providing early interventions for students in ages 3 and up in CPS. And if there's a disability, we need to look at providing the evaluation process. But we also want to make sure that the interventions are, if students are in that process of an evaluation, that interventions are being provided to that student up until the point that they are identified in a special education program. And then racial over-identification. Nationally, we see this as our Latino students and African American students, and CPS doesn't want to be one of those statistics, and we want to make sure that we are supporting our African American and our Latino males especially, and we do see data where we see more male students versus female students in special education. So our policy reforms, what I talked about in the previous slide, we looked at various pieces of it and making sure that there's just data that's embedded in the decision-making process for students during the IEP. Two things that were rolled out last year early on in September and October were guidelines around transportation and paraprofessionals. Those two guidelines, when they were rolling them out, were needed to be relooked at before, as we kind of started rolling them out. Transportation in general was relooked at and adjusted immediately to make sure that we were ensuring that all students, that if they qualify, that they were participating, receiving the transportation. So we did look at some of the things and the criteria, and we're continuing to looking at that criteria as we continue to go on through the procedural manual process. However, we did make significant changes to it right away in September. The other one was paraprofessionals. paraprofessional. That one, we looked at it in terms of, they built it out in our SSM, which is in our IP system. The data had to be inputted in there, and it was it was a lot of information that was required by the teachers. We heard from our teachers of CTU right away. We met with them, and we made immediate adjustments to it. So we have requirements for 5 days. We reduced that down from 10, but that is much more in alignment with the teachers can upload. The CTU recommended that it was an easier access to the requirement for the IEP. We want to make sure that there's data there, but we don't want to make the teachers work and having so much input and putting it into the system. So we made those 2 immediate changes. The other guidelines we are continuing to relook at, always kind of tweaking them, but they were moving in a line. They were moving along. We did not see any need to adjust those guidelines, but the first 2 guidelines that were rolled out in transportation and paraprofessional, we made significant changes to. The other thing I want to highlight is we are updating a procedural manual. We posted the procedural manual and updated it in July of 2017. Previously, that procedural manual was not on an outward-facing website since 2011. So when I'm taking over, making sure that and as the Chief of Special Education here in Chicago, the procedural manual is really making sure that everybody understands the process. Parents see this information, teachers see this information, principals see this information, so that it's clear about what the expectations are around the evaluation process and what the criteria is. This is something that we can't make up. This is something that we have to utilize through the IDEA. Our manual that we updated was from the 2002 manual, and this manual also is very aligned to the statewide, which is the School Board Association manual. So it's very in alignment with that. We did receive feedback from the advocacy groups in May and then also in December. And we met with CTU. We received initial feedback from them in July of 2017. And now that we're updating the manual again, we're looking at some of the pieces. CTU, we're meeting with them again on January 31st to be able to get some more feedback from them. So to me, my process of this, we want to make sure we're engaging CTU as much as possible and our advocacy groups to make sure that we're ensuring that we all are seeing the same things, that we're getting different perspectives, and that we are being open and transparent throughout the process. Last week, we looked at providing additional resources to special education. This is going directly to 56 schools. When we looked at this, when I became the chief in September of 2017, Dr. Jackson kind of asked me to relook to say, if we had to make sure that we wanted to ensure the support students, we know that we built the budget system differently this past year. We know that we were working with our schools to make sure that they had enough resources for special ed. But what other things could we look at just to support our students in a different manner that we could start to kind of say, how does this give us information in our next budgeting process? So we looked at providing additional EL supports for our English language, our duly identified EL and special ed students, and we were working with 30 schools that will be receiving that support. One of the biggest challenges when you are identified as an EL and special ed student, English learner, that the language component is difficult from the special ed perspective. So we want to make sure we're blending that support. The other, there is an additional 10 schools that we're doing a behavioral health model team approach with working with our school psychologists, counselors, and social workers. So those are going to be supporting 10 schools. Those are primarily in Network 9 and 5. And then we're also adding in 16 bilingual paraprofessionals additional to our schools. We looked at the need, and we sent those the schools that needed additional 1 or 2 bilingual paraprofessionals based on the criteria. And then there's 9 paraprofessionals to help with behavioral supports across the city. So those are the things that we are committing to do and to support in our schools and work with our schools. But we're going to use this information to be able to kind of help enhance and decide how we provide supports in the budgeting process for this next spring. Moving along here, I want to just kind of highlight our path moving forward. We are in the process, as Dr. Jackson, with an ISB review as an inquiry. We will continue to update you on that process. We're just in the initial stages with them on that. But the two big things that I want us to make sure that we're focusing in on: parent involvement and stakeholder engagement. These are things that I feel that have to be very open and honest and transparent conversations. I was just at a parent meeting last night to hear from our parents. They are hungry for being able to have information. So we are trying to get the word out as much as possible. We are doing parent university trainings and supports with our families on a monthly basis in 9 regional sites. We are also hiring 3 parent involvement specialists. We've hired 2 of them. We're in the onboarding process with 2 of them, and we're in the process of hiring the 3rd one. And we're going to continue to look at that. We would like to kind of look at how do we continue to support 3 people, and how do we get ambassadors, and to kind of get our families to really feel like they have somebody there who can support them with this process. One of the big thing is with these parent involvement specialists is they have students with special needs, so they can come from a very personal level to support our families. And the other thing is our parent advisory council. To me, those are very important pieces to have to guide our process. They will be advising me to be able to advise the CEO, and so that we can be much more informed about when we do look at any reforms or any changes that they're a part of, and they give feedback in that process. And we will. I continue to meet with CTU on a monthly basis, and we'll continue to do that. And I welcome meeting with the advocacy groups on an ongoing basis too. So that's the overview of our reforms and where we're going for the next 6 months. We will also continue to work at our budgeting process too, to make sure that we're engaging parents and our principals in that process too.
Thank you. Board members?
I have a question. So thank you for the time this week that you spent with me.
Yeah.
Share with the group who will be on this advisory council, how you'll select them, how often you'll meet, what your subject matter is, just generally what your early thoughts are on that.
So there are generally going to be bylaws around how a parent advisory council, we're going to take model programs from that. I also looked at it, we had recommendations from looking at hospital advisory councils. So generally they want us to look at how do we have families that are representing different areas, areas of disabilities, but also demographically too. So you want to make sure that we have representation that looks like CPS. So our largest population is our Latino students, our African American families. We want to make sure that we have that presence and voice on that committee. We also want to make sure that we're looking at parents who have autism students, who are SLD with specific learning disabilities, so a variety of disability categories. What I find when we start to get these moving, it's difficult to get parents in to understand what this is. So we are going to have an application process. We hope to get at least 20 to 25 families. If we get that many, we're going to start to get as many as we can right away. I hope we can get 25. We'll do that selection process. It won't be run by me. It will be run by our parent involvement specialists, so that we have parents working with parents and running this. I will be attending those meetings, and I will be receiving, we will provide them with information, but I will be getting, they will be advising to me to be able to advise to the CEO. And that format allows us to make sure that they are really being honest and that they have the process, that they are empowered to make these recommendations. But I also feel that, they're going to be invaluable in terms of supporting how we get outreach to our families and parents, and how do they understand the IEP process. So long-winded answer to your question, but we're going to hopefully have 20 to 25, and we'll go through that selection process at the first meeting in March.
Frank, one of the things I suggested, and I realize this is a full-time job for you as a volunteer, but it's part-time for the rest of us, was that I asked Liz, find a way that when we schedule these, that we, the board members, can attend them, one at a time, but right, so that we get a better taste of this thing that happens in September is unreal for these families, right? And and maybe before we get there, we'll hear some of it. And
Absolutely.
So anyway, just a suggestion for us.
I'm not on? Oh.
And I'm sure they would love that.
Yeah.
They would love to have that, hearing that the board members are wanting to hear from them too.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
Question for the 46 positions that are new positions that are supporting schools with high EL populations, English learner populations. What does the bench look like of folks that we can hire? How quickly can we hire those folks? Are there people that have those dual certifications just sitting out there? Are we incentivizing teachers to take some of those positions? Just have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, we have a shortage across Illinois, across the nation, just in general, special education teachers. And to be able to find a duly licensed EL special ed teacher is literally impossible. So when we looked at this, we want to make sure that at these schools, we're going to have the IEP with the licensed special ed teacher that will be overseen by that. But we wanted to have an EL perspective. And so we're going to have an EL endorsed teacher working with special ed teachers, students who are EL and special ed. We're going to work closely with those schools on how you provide co-teaching methodologies, how do you start to provide interventions, but we don't want to lose that language perspective. This person also will be able to help work with the special ed teachers in terms of working at how do you understand the access testing, what information can you gather from that, so that we start to really kind of blend the two within an IEP, because we don't want our students to feel like we're forgetting about the language component for them in special ed.
Got it. So we're being creative in terms of how we're allocating those resources and providing professional development so that that approach works on the ground for those students.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
You know, just to comment, if I may, Liz, thank you very much for your many conversations in the past and especially in the recent future. I have a great interest in your parent program and would like to support that in any way. In my experiences, you know, your schools work tirelessly with their students and with their teachers and with their staff, but the real piece that's is the supporting parent. And it's like a three-legged stool. If you don't have that piece, then it doesn't work. So making sure that that's there is really of great interest to me, and thank you for bringing that forward.
Yes. That's one of the goals that I had coming in here, to just make sure that we have that parent engagement, but also the voice at the table. So I think by doing the parent university outreach and then also having this advisory council will really kind of help us move forward with any additional reforms that we can get their perspective on.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I think what the audience heard and what the board heard, these policy reforms appear to be all, I think, directionally correct, and you will certainly get the opportunity during the board meeting today to get additional direction.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that concludes the CEO's report.
Okay. I have one announcement to yes. I have one announcement to make. Same one I make at every board meeting. We invite and encourage people to use the board website, cpsboe.org. It's an excellent way to reach out to the board and have involvement with the board in between board meetings. With that, we're going to, Madam Secretary, first, please share the details for the next board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next board meeting will be held on Wednesday, February 28th, 2018 at the CPS Loop office. Advanced registration will open at 10:30 a.m. on Monday, February 26th, 2018, and will close on Tuesday, February 27th, 2018 at 5 p.m. or until all slots are filled, whichever is first. And if anyone has any questions about this process, please contact the board office for our assistance. Thank you.
Okay. Let's proceed with today's public participation section. Madam Secretary, please share the rules for public participation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speakers, please listen while I provide directions for public participation. I will call your name and number when it is your turn to speak. When you hear your name, please immediately proceed to the staging area to the left of the podium and check in with our office staff member, Eric. He will assist you and line you up in the right order. When it is your turn to speak, proceed to the podium and state your name. After you state your name, I will then start the 2-minute clock, which is visible to all in the audience. And I would also like to note that there is a timer on top of the podium for the speakers to see. When there are 30 seconds remaining, the color will turn yellow, and when the 2 minutes are up, the light will turn to red. Please immediately take your seat when your time is up to allow for the next speaker to begin. And also, for anyone who plans to stand in support of a speaker, please be aware that the only walkway in the boardroom is behind the podium. Therefore, if you would kindly make a single file line and stand as near as the railing as possible, this will still allow people to pass through the area safely. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, we do have various elected officials with us this morning, and I will start by calling them first. And then we will continue with the speakers list. So, Mr. President, our first speaker will be Senator Maddie Hunter from the 3rd District, followed by Senator Jacqueline Collins from the 16th District, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman Clark, Interim Superintendent Dr. Jackson, board members, staff, and guests. My name is Maddie Hunter, State Senator of the 3rd Legislative District. And just in follow-up of our meeting with the other elected officials a couple of weeks ago, we indicated that we'd like to improve the communication system as well as transparency, especially as it relates to the closings of the Inglewood High Schools and the changes, the school changes as it relates to NTA and Hearst High School. Just so that you know, I have met with Hearst High School folks. They did come to my office and we talked, and we're trying to work some things out and improve the communication systems as well. We also indicated, Dr. Jackson, that we'd like to work closer with you because we just simply felt that, and which is why we're down here today, that we were not involved or made aware early enough of the school actions and closings that took place at those particular high schools. And as a result, the community complained to us, and it was not a really good meeting. So we look forward to improving the communication systems, and we got your back down in Springfield as we have in the past, okay? And we just want to improve the communication systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. As I stated in that meeting, I respect and appreciate what the General Assembly did for the Chicago Board of Education.
And we will continue to do so.
I appreciate that, and we will continue to listen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Good morning, President Clark. Congratulations to you, Dr. Jackson, and other board members. I am State Senator Jacqueline Collins, and I represent the 16th Legislative District. That encompasses portions of West Inglewood, where Robeson is located. Over the last few weeks, I have attended the public hearings or meetings to hear from the parents and the young adults who would be directly impacted by the closure of Harper, Hope, Team Inglewood, and Robeson. What was emphatically clear was while the community wants and deserves a new school, the trade-off can't be the closure of all of Inglewood's 4 high schools. I am here today to stand with my constituents in opposition to CPS's proposal. The crisis we are confronting today with the under-enrollment of Harper, Robeson, Team Inglewood, and Hope is a result of disinvestment in neighborhood schools. Low-income Black children continue to bear the brunt of CPS's failures and its reforms. It's long past time for CPS to become responsible by establishing a serious long-term effort to evaluate programs based on scientific methods, evidence, and sound educational practices so that we stop damaging children and start using what we have learned to make every school work well for all children. Research is very clear that moving a student from one school to another can cause significant academic recession. And closing down the only community high school in an area simply exacerbates young people's sense of alienation and disconnection. And when you dislocate at-risk children or students, you often see an uptick in school violence when crossing gang territories. When you systematically and callously undermine the foundation of public education, you close the door to hope and opportunity for many of our most vulnerable students. If CPS wants to argue for equitable funding at the state level, then it also needs to provide all Chicago students and families with an equitable process and voice when it comes to significant changes to their education. I look forward, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I look forward for you working with the legislators, the parents, and the other community stakeholders to find an acceptable resolution to, I feel, has been an ill-conceived plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Collins.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'll now proceed with the aldermen that are with us this morning. Our first alderman will be from the 6th Ward, Alderman Rod Sawyer, followed by the 17th Ward, Alderman Moore.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Clark, members of the board, Dr. Jackson, Chief Education Officer McDade. I'm here in support of the full nomination of Dr. Janice Jackson to the title of CEO of the Chicago Public School System. I've had the pleasure in a short time to engage with Dr. Jackson on a variety of issues, particularly the Inglewood closings that have been discussed so far today. And what I will say with Dr. Jackson, she's been open and upfront. She has been very clear on the issues, and she's willing to listen to everybody that's involved. And I truly support that, and I encourage that. And I just wanted to let Dr. Jackson know in particular that we're here as a resource to you.
Thank you.
Although we're here for you today, I think what we all share today is the need for the uplifting and education of our children, which is of paramount importance. We're all here for the education and the excellence of our children, as we saw here today with your children from Westinghouse High School, and we want you to replicate that throughout the school district. We want all schools to be high-quality neighborhood schools that can send kids to college or to vocations or whatever they desire. So I'm here in support of you, Dr. Jackson, and I'm imploring the board to make sure they make the right decision and to make sure that we go forward in all our educational pursuits for the benefit of our children of the city of Chicago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman.
You all would make me follow the chairman of our Black Caucus. Thank you, Rod, for those remarks. First of all, I want to state and say thank you all for allowing us to speak. Chairman, President Clark, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate your leadership tremendously. Definitely want to just come up here and say what my colleague, State Senator Jackie Collins, I support her in her position and what she's echoed. But what I'm excited about, and I think that's what Rod just said, is this appointment that we support and you all putting Dr. Janice Jackson and making this appointment would be the best thing, I think, right now for CPS. Under your leadership, Mr. Clark, under this board, I think you accepting this appointment and helping pushing it through shows your leadership as well. But I also want to thank the mayor for not looking her over and going and making this appointment, because he could have done that and then he would have had a bigger fight on his hand. And so I really appreciate that, and to the point where we're fighting for our schools, especially Inglewood or any other actions, there's nothing like having a person that you can talk to, even if you disagree with them, and everybody work toward the common goal of doing the right thing for our children. And I can't even be more excited, Janice, and I think this has something to do with you already in terms of you, one of your first moves in your leadership, and that's moving Latonya McDade into your former position. And that's great because I've had the opportunity to work with her as well. And when you have people that listen to you, they don't listen to everything and say, I'm just doing this because you're an alderman. They analyze, they look, and she's been one of those persons, as well as yourself, to do that. And I'm saying that from firsthand experience, and it's been moving the ball along. So I'm excited about the future of CPS. Again, we may not agree all the time, but we're going to come to the common goal and continue to work on that common goal of making this CPS a better place for our children. So thank you very much, and I appeal to this board, make sure you vote to confirm her as the CEO. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman.
Our next alderman, Mr. President, will be from the 8th Ward, Alderman Harris, followed by the 19th Ward, Alderman O'Shea.
Good morning. Good morning. I wrote my stuff down because I'm forgetful. So, good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. I come before you today in support of Dr. Janice Jackson and her appointment as CEO of Chicago Public Schools. Born and raised in Chicago, she truly knows the system from the bottom to the top. First as a student, then as a teacher, and as an administrator. She began her teaching career at South Shore High School in my ward. Dr. Jackson is a proud product of Chicago Public Schools. What better person than to have her here, as my kids say, started from the bottom, now we're here, in a system and to represent everybody. And so I think we've been asking for, we want somebody to know the system. We want somebody that understands the system. So today, as we look to you for leadership and running the school system for the city of Chicago, we understand that you understand it from the bottom to the top. Nobody better than you. She has her children in the system, and any parent that thinks enough to put their kids in the school system has a faith and a belief that that school system is a great place to be. So I'm just really proud of you. She's a CSU graduate. She's got a PhD and master's from UIC. Her knowledge base has surpassed any candidate that we could pick from the outside. There just is not one single person that I think could stand up toe-to-toe with her. So I fully support this appointment. I'm confident in Dr. Jackson's ability to move CPS forward. She's a shining example of what CPS can and does produce. And we ask for, and we really want you to make sure that she gets that spot, because she definitely, if I can vote, I vote 5 times, and they probably make me wear an orange jumpsuit. But definitely want to support you to serve as the CEO of Chicago Public School Systems. Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Latonya McDade, who is my girl, and another shining example of leadership. And go women, women power, go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Mr. President, I was just informed that Alderman O'Shea had to leave the meeting and he will not address the board. So I'll proceed with the next alderman, please. From the 25th Ward, Daniel Solis, please, followed by the 34th Ward Alderman, Alderman Austin.
Good morning, Mr. President, board members. Good morning, Dr. Jackson. I have really 2 topics that I want to speak about. I do have some people that I think are going to stand next to me expressing the same opinion and support. The first one is very obvious. I'm here, like my colleagues, to support Dr. Jackson, Ms. McDade, and Arnie Rivera. I think I want to highlight that I am also the proud husband of Chicago public school teacher, and I have the same message from her in terms of this excellent appointment that you guys are about to make today. It's important also to highlight that their parents, at least Dr. Jackson, is not only an educator, a teacher, a principal, and now the head of the Chicago Public Schools, but she's also invested in putting her kids in the public schools. So that takes a lot of merit to be considered. And also on a personal basis, every school that I represent in my 25th Ward, every public school, has improved under her tenure, and that should be recognized. With that, let me go to my, also I have 2 of Chicago's finest principals here today. Dana Butler from Reese School and Sue Lunsey from Youngman Elementary. They're here too and express the same kind of support.
Don't forget Juan.
Yeah, that's real good.
And then the rest of the people that are here are from some of the neighborhoods I represent, Pilsen, Chinatown, Abla Homes, and they're here to support the transition of NTA from a grammar school to a high school. I know that there has not been full support, but I think all the planning that has been done is very much taking into consideration not only the present teachers and parents and students in the school now, but also the future. I think the fact that they're going to get first priority in terms of being able to attend this high school. I think the fact that they'll be able to go to the South Loop School And then finally, that we will finally have representation in this new high school of all of the key components of those neighborhoods. So I highly recommend that move to transition NTA from an elementary to a high school. And the people that are here with me today support that also.
Thank you very much, Alderman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And our next Alderman, please, from the 34th Ward, Alderman Austin.
I forgot another principal, Juan Ocon from Benito Juarez High School. He's doing an outstanding job. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Danny, you came to outdo us all. Good morning.
Morning.
Let me first giving all praises and honor to God, who've allowed all of us to be here today.
Yes, ma'am.
I also stand with my colleagues on this appointment, President Clark, and to the board members. You couldn't have picked a better choice. One, as Alderman Harris has said, that started from the bottom up. And I'm glad that in between all of that, I had an opportunity to work with Dr. Jackson regarding the closing of my school. And she assured me that my students would not suffer in any manner, especially during education. I was very fearful because some of the students had to go to my special education school, which was Langston Hughes. And she assured me, she didn't say Alderman, she said Carrie. Let me assure you that the students that are moving from one school to another, which was Cone, to Langston Hughes or Leviso, your students would not suffer in any manner. And I can say that my students are at +1 schools. That's under your leadership. Now to come down to Dr. McDade, that's another gem for us. But let me say in regards to go along with my colleagues who are here with us, some that have had to leave, if we had to say or vote in regards to, I ain't gonna vote like Alderman Harris 5 times, but that one I do have, it would be for you.
Thank you.
Because it is from the heart that you have come from the bottom to the top. But to have a desire as a young woman to want to be at the top, and you have strived to become just that. You didn't do it on your own. You had some help. But the biggest help that you had was from God.
Amen.
Because he kept you on the path that you asked him for. And that within itself makes you an outstanding leader. For all of those that has to vote for her, vote your heart, because sometimes your conscience will fool you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman. And our last Alderman to address the board, Mr. President, from the 36th Ward, please, Alderman Villegas.
Good morning, President Clark, Vice President Guzman, and the board, interim CEO, Dr. Jackson. You can tell a lot about a leader by the people they surround themselves with. My grandma told me, I'll tell you who you are by who you hang with. You see their priorities, their values, and their ideals. I see Dr. Jackson and her team, and I see a robust group of qualified educators and dedicated public servants ready to pick up the mantle and support the incredible progress schools are making right now. I have 14 of these schools in my ward. I'm very busy. It gives me great pride to finally see a diverse team of leaders that accurately reflect the students of whom they represent. Although we are the second largest ethnic group in Chicago, it's unfortunate fact that Latinos hold far too little leadership roles in this city. With the appointment of Arnold Rivera as CPS's Chief Operating Officer, I'm proud to say that CPS is working to change that. I look forward to working with Dr. Jackson, Arnie Rivera, and Latonya McDade. We haven't met yet, but I look forward to working with you. And to ensure that every one of our students have the tools they need to succeed. And I would ask this board, as well as Dr. Jackson, that as we're moving forward with these curriculums, that we look at investing in vocational schools, please. So with that, I hope that the board votes in favor of Dr. Jackson. The Latino Caucus, we are here to support Dr. Jackson, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman. And Mr. President, I'll continue. Our next speaker then will be from the CTU, the recording secretary, Michael Brunson, please.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm seeing so many people I know up in here today. Like a birthday party, or is it a funeral?
You know.
Anyway, I'm here today on behalf of our 24,000 members and the students and families that we serve to ask this board to end your past practices of indifference to community concerns and listen for a change to the people who fund this school district, our students, parents, and countless hard-working, tax-paying Chicago residents. And I truly hope that you listen not only with your ears, but with your heart, because whatever one may say, it's what moves the heart that determines the thinking and the decisions that you make. Now, I want to pick up where I left off at last time concerning Hirsch Metropolitan High School. I've been on the ground there listening, looking, and doing a great deal of thinking about it. And I went to both the hearings at the school, and I intend to go to the one that you're going to have right here. I was struck by the fact that at these Hirsch hearings, there were many more speakers in favor of that slow motion takeover, or if you prefer to call it a co-location. There were more speakers from distinctive schools than there were from AIM Charter. And you might recall I raised a number of red flags about that last time when I talked to you. So I thought that was very interesting. And they came in there and first of all, they stuck out like sore thumbs, but I won't go there. They gave really good speeches. They used all the right glowing terms like excellence, innovation, and change. And I'm thinking that whenever I hear that word change, I automatically think of this old French proverb, and I'll say it in English. My French is not that good. It translates as, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I recently listened to a speech that Dr. King gave in London on December the 7th, 1964, over 50 years ago. And he was talking about segregation in the USA, and that's both USA's, United States of America, and the Union of South Africa. And the issue was about racial segregation. Racial segregation and its impact, which is economic segregation, which is expressed as separate, and unequal. And I think about what it really means when you co-locate a charter in a traditional public school. Now, it may not impose racial segregation, but you still have the economic inequality. The charter gets the resources, the public school gets starved. The students in each school are kept separate, and the students in each school receive unequal resources. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Co-location is segregation. And in the same speech, Dr. King also referred, and I think all of you should listen to it, listen to that speech. It's December 7th, 1964. He gave it in London. He referred to this ancient philosophical conundrum. It goes something like this. Do the ends justify the means? And that is a critical issue because so often that line of argument is used to rationalize injustice. It's like when the perfect becomes the enemy of the good. So war is justified when it brings democracy and freedom to a country. Slavery was justified because it brought economic prosperity to the South. And now choice and competition is justified because it's said to improve the educational environment. You would be surprised at how many people are swayed by that illogical and self-seeking argument that the ends justify the means. I like the way that Dr. King so eloquently stated it. He said it's nothing but a thin rationalization to clothe an obvious wrong in beautiful garments of righteousness. I'll state it less poetically by giving examples. You don't use fuel to put out a fire, you use water. You don't stop violence with violence, you resolve the conflict. You don't bring peace by waging war, you use diplomacy. Let's think about North Korea now. You don't improve public education by closing schools or privatizing them and selling them off in pieces to the highest bidder. You provide them with resources and the support they need. And most importantly, you don't educate youth by telling falsehoods, reinterpreting facts, and acting in underhanded and manipulative ways. One key organization behind the AIM charter insertion at Hirsch stood up in those school meetings and talked about how much they contributed to Hirsch as if it was out of the goodness of their hearts. They paid rent for the use of the building for their own programs. Rent is not charity. Let's not act like that in front of our students. Any argument that you bring a greater good should not be based upon false information, especially at this time since we're living in Trump Nation, or what may better be termed as Trumpocalypse. So I urge you to reconsider the decision you made in December to implant a charter into Hirsch Metropolitan High School. But I also urge you not only to close the high schools in Inglewood, but to actually take the community hearings and the entire process that you have set up for public input seriously. Today you'll hear from people who oppose CPS policies on a range of critical issues. You'll hear from all the way from American Federation of Teachers, Mr. Brad Murray, whose research has raised alarming red flags about your proposal to turn over Hirsch High School's facilities to a SUPS-connected charter operator, Joseph Wise. I told you about Joseph and his partner last time. You'll hear again about the dangerous shortage of full-time school nurses in our schools and about CPS's foot dragging on a dynamic and proven sustainable community schools project that you yourselves agreed to fund and support in our current CTU contract. You'll hear parents, students, and community residents raise their passionate opposition to your plans to turn out the overwhelmingly black and low-income students of NTA in a move that is more about accommodating the interests of developers and gentrifiers than truly supporting our students. You'll hear the pleas of students, parents, and community residents who have argued passionately for months that this board should and must back away from its plans to shut down every neighborhood public school in Inglewood. You have an opportunity today to change this unconscionable dynamic. You have the opportunity to at last listen to parents and residents who are demanding that CPS support, not destroy our neighborhood schools. You have the opportunity to do what's right, not what's expedient or what serves the mayor's political schemes. I ask today that for once, or a change, that you do what's right. Listen to the people. Don't close our Inglewood high schools. Don't close NTA. Don't hand Hirsch over to a crooked, politically connected charter operator, but instead hire the school nurses, counselors, librarians, and special education teachers our students need. Invest in real wraparound services for our disadvantaged students instead of another round of fat cat contracts to companies like Sodexo and Aramark, who have profited mightily while they failed our students. By the way, I was over in Stockholm in 2016, and they had Sodexo all up in there. They're worldwide. But anyway, we've had enough of the scandals in this district. avoid the embarrassment of a distinctive schools debacle and the public outrage that will come from the precipitous closure of the high schools in Inglewood. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
No question?
Thank you, Mr. Brunson.
Your statement was comprehensive.
Listening to me.
Thank you.
Our next speakers, Mr. President, will be Director Billy Dyson from the Illinois Secretary of State Office, followed by Dr. Leon Finney from the Woodlawn Community Development Association, and then Pastor John Harrell from the Proviso MBC.
Good afternoon, everyone. Board President, to the board, to Dr. Jackson, to the distinguished guests, our aldermen, our elected officials, and each and every one of you. I serve as Secretary Jesse White Personal Assistant, and I just come myself as a product of the Chicago Public School to congratulate Dr. Jackson on a job well done, and want you to know from Secretary White himself that we wholeheartedly support you and hope that this board do the right thing by voting you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Dyson. Dr. Leon Finney, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Finney.
Chief Executive Officer Janice Jackson and my friends on the board. I'm here for two reasons. Really, I came for one. But after listening to a bit of testimony, I think I'd like to extend my moment to give you some insight about school closings and what they mean and why they happen. First, I am here to join with the many who've already spoken to commend this board for its wisdom in putting forth the name of Dr. Janice Jackson to be the permanent Chief Executive Officer of our system. I've been around for a while. I began to work in the area in 1964. Some of the people in this room weren't even born then. And then we were protesting school segregation. Some of you may remember historically the term Willis wagons. Well, we led through the Woodlawn organization the major protest that closed for one day every school that blacks attended in the south and west side of the city of Chicago in protest for school segregation. I was around long enough to when the United States District Court, for this district, I believe it's the 7th, forced the Board of Education into a consent decree to put forth a plan to desegregate public schools. I was asked by then the mayor of the city of Chicago to be the chairman or chairperson of the Monitor Commission for School Desegregation, where I served in that capacity for 6 years, which means that I had an intimate understanding of what was going on in our Chicago public schools. I've worked with every superintendent of public schools, 9 to my recollection, over the 5 decades that I've been involved. And during that time, I've come to respect this board. I also worked with the first African-American female to be chosen to be the superintendent of public schools, Ruth Love. California sent us Ruth Love. However, we are here today to celebrate and hopefully commend you for your vote, and that is to approve the nomination of the candidacy of Dr. Janice Jackson. Others have already spoken to from the bottom to the top. Who else would start at Head Start and CPS and graduate from my alma mater, Hyde Park High School, and then end up being a parent and sending her child to public schools, graduating from the Chicago State and University of Illinois, all public schools? She's uniquely qualified, and I urge this board to approve her and appoint her as our next Chief Executive Officer. Now, I'd like to just speak to the issue of school closings. You have an awesome responsibility. But let me say this to you. Over the years that I have been around, I've watched schools in my sainted neighborhood of Woodlawn close. Walter Scott closed. Fisk Grammar School closed. Tesla closed. Fisk Grammar School closed. Betsy Ross closed. Carter School closed. Why? Because we lost population. There were not sufficient children to accommodate those schools. I watched the plan for plans for transformation that was set forth by the Chicago Housing Authority. Remember, all the schools that were around Rockwell Gardens, Henry Horner projects, Ida B. Wells, all the schools that were around Robert Taylor Homes, Stateway Gardens, closed. Why? Because the population was no longer there to support them. My family owned restaurants, and one was in Englewood, Leon's Barbecue, 59th and Racine. It's closed. But the Englewood that served that neighborhood, it no longer exists. Massive dislocation of population. You need students and people in order to keep schools open. Where are the students? You've got in Englewood right now a capacity in the high schools in excess of 2,000 students that could be going to Englewood. I believe it's 2,500. Less than 500. I think it's 300 students are going to all of those high schools. How are you going to keep them open? How do you justify it? In July of 1976, I wrote an article to the Chicago Tribune. And that article said that if integration is a one-way street, it will not work. That means that I foresaw what was going to happen and what was happening. And between 2000 and 2018, the south and the west side of the city of Chicago has lost 250,000 African-American families. And with that, their children. That means that any neighborhood that had fully operating high schools does not have the population to support the high schools. We closed the business because there were insufficient customers to come to the business. Our public schools have to be able to be operational and funded. I don't think it's racist when you have to make a business decision. I think that we have to be sensible. I was there, and I'm going to close my remarks. I was there when community meeting after community meeting in Englewood happened. And I heard the people of Englewood, those who were working with the CAC, decide that they could no longer justify keeping 5 public high schools open. They moved and said, we got to consolidate in order to make it work. Build a new school at Robertson, repurpose Harper, and invest in the neighborhood. There was a plan set forth by the CAC to cause or catalyze over $175 million of investment using the schools as an opportunity to spur reinvestment in Englewood. I know that this board and its staff met meeting after meeting with the people from Englewood. In closing, let me put it this way. I don't want to say that this issue of school closing has become politicized. That's a bad term these days with Donald Trump as the President of the United States of America. But what I can say is this: let's not play politics with the future of our public school system. Let's make absolutely sure we use evidence as it relates to closing or opening every public school. Mr. President, thank you for indulging me.
Thank you for your insights, Dr. Finney. They're always welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Finney. And our next speaker, please, Pastor John Harrell, followed by Alderman from the 24th Ward, Alderman Scott.
Giving honor to God, to Mr. President, to the illustrious board, and certainly to our newly appointed CEO. And then we say God bless you to Sister McDade on her new appointment. I stand here as a proud product of Chicago Public Schools, from that great academic institution better known as Marshall High School. And I'm also a product of my late great aunt Nancy B. Jefferson, who would be so proud of this appointment, who also just so happened to be qualified, but most importantly, she has a passion and a commitment for the work. And so it is my prayer that after today's end and we read the headlines, that Chicago Public Schools would have a new CEO. And for that, I say God bless you and keep up your good work as we all continue to work together with our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and members of the board. I'm Alderman Michael Scott. I'm the alderman in the 24th Ward, and I represent North Lawndale, pieces of Garfield, and a small piece of Austin. And it is my honor to come here and support this choice for the new CEO. When I assumed office in 2015 was right around the time that Dr. Jackson assumed office here, and I become a little bit more observant in the trends that have happened here in CPS, and everybody knows that that trend is upwards. And I think that is a direct result of Dr. Jackson and her leadership. Her passion for education and ensuring that our youth have the best quality education is, I think, paramount in her beliefs, and it is also immeasurable. When Dr. Jackson took over this role in 2015, the schools made great strides in direct relationship to her leadership. Dr. Jackson is CPS. She defines CPS. She was a student. She was a principal, a network chief, the CEO, chief education officer, and her most important job, she is a parent to a CPS student. I know that that is very important because I have 2 young people in CPS myself. And unlike her predecessors, she has done everything, and she can identify with everybody on every level of CPS. I'm sure that Dr. Jackson will continue the trend of upward, our students going upward in terms of their academics. And I'd like to tell a little story before I leave. About 2002, 2004, a young park supervisor on the west side of Chicago was hosting a CPS, principal workshop that they were hosting at Douglas Park. And there were a lot of young principals, and he began to have a conversation with the principal of Al Raby. And they talked about, what was going on in the neighborhood and how Al Raby can become a better partner with Douglas Park. And along that conversation, they talked about their dreams and what they hope to have happen over the course of their career. And the young park supervisor talked about how he wanted to be alderman of the 24th Ward. And the young principal talked about how she wanted to be the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. And had I known at that time that God was going to grant both of us those dreams, I would have dreamed a little bit higher. So to the board, I think that you cannot make a better decision in a choice with Janice Jackson. Dr. Jackson, I think, is a model of what CPS can produce, and a model to what all of our young people can aspire to be. So at the end of this day, I hope your vote will be yes for this young lady, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman. Our next speaker, Mr. President, is Rick Estrada from the Metropolitan Family Services, please.
Good morning. President Clark, members of the Board of Education, thank you for allowing me the time to be here today. I am here to join the chorus of people that are going to support Dr. Janice Jackson. But let me just tell you, my name is Rick Estrada. I'm CEO of Metropolitan Family Services. It's the state's first charter not-for-profit organization, founded in 1850, chartered in 1857, to provide and mobilize resources to strengthen families and communities. Therefore, families is our middle name. We serve 72,000 people around the metropolitan region and providing them with life-saving services. Those residents live in places like Englewood, Roseland, South Chicago, New City, the southwest side of the city, the northwest side of the city, and increasingly on the west side of the city. I am here to express my support, my excitement about the appointment of Dr. Jackson to head the Chicago Public Schools, and I'll tell you why I'm so excited. For the first time in over 20 years, we have neither an outsider or a non-educator leading the Chicago Public Schools. Now, I ask, would a bank, Mr. Furlong, lead a financial institution without the critical expertise about banking in the financial markets? Or would NASA go 20 years with hiring an aeronautical engineer or astrophysicist? Clearly, the answer is no. So content and relevant expertise matters. But I digress a little bit. Dr. Jackson has real-life experiences and content expertise not only in education, but in management and leadership. And to top it off, she has cultural competency. She is exactly what we've been calling for and looking for over 20 years. She attended public elementary, high school, and public universities. She is homegrown and is extraordinary and happens to have a global perspective. A principal at the age of 27, and I visited your school, El Raby, and I also visited Westinghouse. Twice a founding public schools principal. She has led in CPS at all levels, and she is ready to help our children excel. I have a couple of pieces of advice for Dr. Jackson. As a former member of the board of the University of Illinois, I would hope that you would call all the university presidents to meetings at least twice a year and implore them and ask them and demand that they tell you how Chicago public school students are doing not only in enrollment, but in attainment, and at the end of the day, in 4-year graduation. Not 6 years or beyond, as they will want to tell you, but what's our 4-year graduation marks? And that's important to all members of all residents of the state of Illinois, because every additional year at our public institutions is going to run about $30,000 extra to families. Yeah. So that's important. The second one, and I can't comment on the closing of the schools that other people have talked about, but I do want to say this, that we're going to have to close schools at some point if we don't convince people to come back to the city of Chicago. Certainly our African-American communities that have moved to the south suburbs and the west suburbs, we need to convince them to come back to the city of Chicago. The only way of doing that, I think, is by improving the Chicago public schools, but also partnering with city colleges, the other city agencies in Chicago, and importantly with nonprofit organizations and elected officials in convincing our residents that it is safe to come home and that we have high quality educational experiences for them, and I'm happy to be a partner with you in that effort. Finally, I'm going to assume that Dr. Jackson will make some mistakes along the way, because she is human after all. But here too she excels, because she is the kind of leader that will own up to her mistakes, learn from them, and then fix them. She works to develop healthy and innovative cultures in schools and institutions. But her single greatest superpower, because she is kind of a superhero, her single greatest superpower is that she loves and cares for the children of the Chicago public school system, and that means all of them, right? And so, and if you have another one, it's that you have hope that every one of these children will end up living an empowered life and one of success. Thank you, and I hope you vote to appoint her permanently.
Thank you, Rick. As you go back to your seat, Rick is the executive director. He mentioned Metropolitan Family Services. It's, in my judgment, the premier organization focused on supporting families in the greater Chicago area, and the work they do is absolutely phenomenal. I have some history with them, so I guess I felt the need to campaign for them. It's an extraordinary organization with outstanding leadership. I believe at this stage you're also probably I think you are the largest in the city and perhaps even in the state other than the government itself. Not quite, but it's an extraordinary organization with extraordinary leadership.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll now proceed with the speakers list. Our first speakers will be speaker number 1, please, Natasha Erskine, followed by speaker 45, Barbara Erskine. We will then have speaker number 11, Kathleen Yang Clayton, speaker 24, John McDermott, and speaker 44, Nella Coleman. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Erskine. I'm a freshman parent at Dr. Martin Luther King College Prep High School, a premier STEAM selective enrollment school that assumes the responsibility of engaging scholars to become social and cultural activists in the global community through a school-wide mission of social justice. My daughter is off to a great start there on the honor roll. We are fortunate to have an engaged, admired, and competent administrators in Principal David Narain and Assistant Principal Linda Parker. They love the school as their home and the students as their own. Together, their reputations precede them as integral, devoted to education. They have operated above reproach during their entire tenure. It's the reason our family chose King versus many other schools. I represent many parents who are not able to register and attend today, but the bottom line up front is that we demand intervention on the recent LSC vote to oust Principal Narain, that it be reversed and his contract be renewed for a 4-year period. Over the winter break, students, parents, staff, and the principal held a fun-filled community paint to beautify our first floor restrooms. The LSC chairman, Cantu, and Kathy Dale showed up for a bit, but failed to mention to anyone present that they planned to meet hours later to not renew Principal Narain's contract. Their meeting was held completely under the radar and did not solicit any input from the current students, parents, community stakeholders. Ironically, though, they saw fit to invite and solicit input from former students and teachers who clearly have no regard nor respect for our children's education, the stability of our school, the stability of our community, etc., whatsoever. Decisions like these, we feel, completely undermine democracy, our neighborhood schools, and our community.
Ms. Erskine, can you please conclude?
Yes. I am asking you to please intervene. We are going to use all of our resources to ensure that we're able to retain our principal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, since I believe there'll be others taking this position, I did check with the administration and with our legal counsel. Once the LLC votes to terminate a principal, your LLC is locally elected to represent the community. They have full authority to do that. I'm not aware of any legal authority the board has to reverse that. I'm just telling you directly.
Okay.
I hear you, but
okay.
and empathize with you.
Okay.
But it seems that what your request seems to exceed our authority.
Okay. Thank you.
President Clark, if I may, Ms. Erskine, there's also a meeting tonight that Willie Montes Dielco can give you information about, where we're going to explain to parents like yourself that have expressed concerns about the decision. So they're going to be out there tonight along with the network chief to provide information about this decision.
Awesome. We'll all be there.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker then, speaker number 11, please, Kathleen Yang Clayton.
Hi, good morning. President Clark, board members, acting CEO Dr. Jackson. My name is Dr. Kathleen Yang Clayton. I'm a parent of 2 students at South Loop Elementary School, and I teach public policy at UIC. I'm here to encourage the leadership of CPS to reconsider the process that it uses to make policies related to school boundary changes and closures in our city. The current process is flawed. It has created tension and trauma for the parents, caregivers, teachers, staff, and students at neighborhood schools. The process itself is opaque, ill-conceived, as Senator Jackie Collins said, with policies being predetermined based on backroom agreements that generate bad policy. Evidence-based research we have conducted recently has shown that closing NTA will not only overcrowd a new South Loop Elementary School building that's currently being built, but create a tiny high school on top of what is a beautiful community that will really not serve all of Chinatown. Racial equity analyses are not just policy outputs. They are a process that incorporate community engagement from the beginning, providing relevant facts, generating policy options that reflect the interests and needs of key stakeholders before the outcome is determined. The two racial equity analyses I've been part of in the city, one for NTA and the other one for the Englewood neighborhood high schools, has shown that when there is political will by principals and elected officials to support a true racial equity analysis, the level of civic engagement by those affected is positive, vibrant, and most importantly, yields better policy options than the ones that are being created by disconnected public administrators sitting in their offices. While we have heard time and time again that these decisions are done deals, hundreds of people in the city of Chicago have demonstrated that they are hungry for information and for spaces where civility, inclusion, and true input into policy outcomes is welcome and a real part of the policymaking process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clayton.
It's very interesting to note that you have all these young people, I assume students from NTA, watching and participating in public debate. I view that as I guess an extension of your classroom work as you observe how public policy debates are discussed. It's a fine-looking group of young people, and I just noted that.
They are our greatest treasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker for NTA then is Speaker 24, please, John McDermott.
Good afternoon, President Clark, members of the board, and Dr. Jackson. My name is John McDermott. I'm not an NTA parent, but for the last 15 years, I've had the opportunity to work with residents, former residents, and neighbors of a Chicago public housing community slated for redevelopment. And that experience prompted me to volunteer with Chicago United for Equity and with NTA parents. The CHA is poised to redevelop the Ickes home site as a combination of public, affordable, and market rate housing with a total of 850 to 1,000 units. NTA is adjacent to that site. Next month, this board will be asked to approve turning NTA into a stopgap high school. But the new Ickes community is much more likely to succeed if the board rejects this proposal. The Ickes neighborhood will grow in population and diversity. NTA is a multiracial school that parents love. As the Ickes developers market new homes, NTA is a vital asset. Their job is to attract professionals who can pay market rate for housing, and service workers who need affordable housing, and Ickes residents returning to their community. To attract families with kids, the Ickes area needs an elementary school. To build a community, it needs an anchor institution where longtime residents and newcomers can build relationships across race and class. NTA, which is already connecting Ickes families and non-Ickes families, fills both of those needs. Picture a family visiting a model unit at Ickes and discovering a stable level 1 grade school next door. That's NTA. Now imagine the same family finding a school in transition with grade school students phasing out and high school students phasing in, and learning that South Loop Elementary, where kids in 3rd grade and younger are assigned, is a 1.5 miles away from parts of Ickes, and that there's no other CPS elementary school within reasonable walking distance. That's the proposal that's coming to the board. Adding high school capacity in the area is a good thing, but doing so at the expense of NTA, the Ickes community, and equity would be a tragic mistake. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next speaker, please, Nella Coleman, please.
Good morning. My name is Nella Coleman, and I'm a research analyst at NORC at the University of Chicago. However, today I'm here to speak about data I collected with an organization called Chicago United for Equity, or CUE. Specifically, I'm here to speak about the proposal to close NTA and convert it to a high school. I am not an NTA parent, but I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of NTA parents, students, and community members at a recent data collection conducted at Long Grove Homes. Long Grove Homes houses many NTA families who will be directly impacted by the CPS plan. Collectively, 11 trained Q fellows, following a survey protocol, knocked on over 100 doors and reached 30 residents. Similar to the composition of NTA, our respondents were predominantly Black. Of those surveyed, not a single person was in favor of the plan. 2 respondents said that they were neutral, while 28 said that they were against or strongly against the proposal. We followed up and asked respondents why they gave those ratings, and the most common sentiments were that the plan is inconvenient for kids and the community at large. Parents cited the distance elementary students will have to travel as a major inconvenience. Other respondents stated that they opposed or strongly opposed the plan because of the disruption to the cohesive community that it will cause. NTA students I speak to who live at who live at Long Grove Homes spoke remorsefully about the potential loss of their walking school bus, which is a group of students who gather in the building lobby to walk to NTA together every morning. Thank you. And they're led by a woman affectionately called Miss Peaches. The third most cited reason respondents opposed the plan was that it led to a separation of siblings. In addition to the questions about their overall feelings regarding the plan, we asked respondents about their voice. Of those who felt they had no voice, more than half of the people felt they had no voice in the plan, and of those people, 77% found it difficult to attend.
Can you please conclude?
Sure. And they cited that their schedules and ability to secure childcare during those meetings were reasons for the difficulty. In conclusion, our data collection is one of the many illustrations of the fact that the CPS process for the plan was inequitable because it left out the voices of those most impacted from the planning stages, and the current plan serves everyone poorly and should be remedied through a community-led process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman.
Have you made that your findings available to the board? Have you?
We can. Absolutely.
You should. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next speakers from NTA then will be speaker number 7, Mariah Crawford, followed by 46, Corey Bilbrough. Then we'll have 59, Veronica Schmidt, speaker 56, James Miller, and speaker 58, Catherine McKechnie. Thank you. Mariah?
Hi, my name is Mariah Crawford. I am an 8th grader at National Teachers Academy. I've been attending NTA since I was in kindergarten, which means I've been a part of the change. I'm not fighting for myself. I'm fighting for the younger students who feel they don't have a voice and their voice does not matter. I feel that this decision is unfair because NTA is a level 1+ school and mostly African American. I just want to know, is it a racial thing? We all know that this would not be happening to a school that is a level 1+ and mainly Caucasian. NTA is a place where I feel safe and comfortable, where I feel that I am able to be myself. I haven't always been this outspoken. I used to be someone who was very shy, but with the help of my teachers and other staff members that helped me break out of my shell. I've learned so much from NTA and feel that the younger grades should be given the chance to feel the same way without being relocated. Some of my classmates or former students that used to go to NTA did not always go to NTA. Their schools were closed, and for a while they may have felt misplaced. This is like school closures does not happen in white neighborhoods or as wealthy neighborhoods as much as it does in African American neighborhoods, and it is not fair. Thank you for listening.
I'm sorry. What did you say your name was?
Mariah Crawford.
And you're an 8th grader? Yes. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, please, 46, Corey Bilbrough. Moving on to the next speaker then, 59, Veronica Schmidt.
Hi, I'm Veronica Schmidt. I'm a parent at NTA of a 2nd grader. I had a bunch of stuff, but like sitting here, I just feel like our eloquent speaker from the CTU who gave the quote that the ends justify the means. And in this case, I would say absolutely not. The community wanted this, is what we keep hearing. Well, this is your community. And at every community meeting and at every town hall, we've heard nothing but negative things about this proposal. Maybe 1 or 2 people are in favor, but the vast majority of the people who come up and speak say this is a bad plan. We stand here, we're making cogent arguments as to why NTA should continue to thrive and grow these young students, and we have been met with ridiculous and foolish replies. We keep hearing that you're listening, but nobody is hearing anything we're saying. You're listening, but nobody's hearing us. This is a political directive. We have seen that. We've provided information or the proof of that. It's a directive for more affluent South Loopers, PDNA. You know, I say this stuff over and over. I could be doing my grocery list, but I'm just going to skip forward because I already said that. At the focus group that we attended from CPS on January 13th, they started with the video of a mass side greeting of, are the children okay? And what of the children? And you want the reply to be the children are well, because that means everything is good in your community, right? So we've heard from several other people here today that moving kids around and making them start over and getting them in a new building and mashing two things together is not good. So the children will not be well. And the children who are not going to be well the most are our children at NTA. This is an unfair proposal. If on everybody who looks at it, outside of this board apparently, they see it. You tell people what's happening, they go, they're doing what? How can that be? The ends do not justify the means.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker then, please, 56, James Miller. Next speaker then, 58, Catherine McKechnie.
Good morning, everyone. I am a resident of the South Loop. I'm not an NTA parent. I'm not a South Loop parent. I have a 3.5-year-old son who will eventually enter CPS. I am here today in solidarity with Chicago United for Equity as a South Loop resident. Today I would like to discuss the claim that the reason we have to convert NTA is that we have invested in Phillips High School and no South Loop residents are attending the high school. Well, I have a question about how you would define investment. If you go on the CPS website, the current capital budget listed for Phillips Academy is $900,000. Of that amount, $725,000 is the investment in getting air conditioning for the school, and this is a citywide thing that's going on that's ending this year. It's been a 5-year plan to provide air conditioning in all schools. That's great. So then if you look at other schools that are really receiving investments, if you look at DeSable, which was closed in 2005, between the investments in DeSable and the Bronzeville Scholastic School that came out of that closure and was redistributed, those schools have received $43 million. Phillips has received $900,000. So if you take out the amount that was spent on air conditioning, the Bronzeville grouping has received 350 times more money. If you include the air conditioning money, the Bronzeville group or the DeSable grouping has received 43 times the funding. I would not call this investment in a neighborhood school. So why are we doing this? Why are we not investing in a neighborhood school? I don't know. I can't answer that question. Why are we providing South Loop residents with a solution before we invest, an alternate solution before we invest in a neighborhood school? I would say
Ms. McKechnie.
The wealthy people in the South Loop want a school close by for their students that will be bright and shiny and new, even though they already have a school they could send their students to that is low income and African American. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, Mr. President, is speaker number 8, please, Esther Wong, followed by speaker number 4, Andrew Broy, and speaker number 5, Joy Clendenning.
President Clark, Interim CEO Jackson, and board members. My name is Esther Wong, and I have had the privilege of serving the Chinatown community for the last 40 years at the Chinese American Service League. The first 22 years as a board member and a founder, and the past 17 years as the executive director. While I just retired in September, I remain committed in helping immigrants arriving in Chicago. During my time at Castle, we work closely with the Chicago Public Schools. We serve CPS students in our after-school program in both elementary and high school students. We recruited parents and community members to serve on the local school councils, and we work very closely with the Office of Language and Cultural Education. I've met so many limited English-speaking parents who would tell me that while there is good elementary schools in their neighborhood, but the only Chinese bilingual program at a high school is far away. About 20 years ago, a number of community members and CASO worked on a charter school proposal serving students in the Armour Square and Bridgeport area. The effort did not succeed, but it highlighted a long-standing unmet need for a quality high school and that still exists today. I recently talked to a senior member of our community, and they told me that 65 years ago, he had to travel over an hour and take several buses to get to the high school because there was none near Chinatown. The situation remains. While the NTA conversion is not a perfect plan, it certainly addressed a long-term need of high school students in the Armour Square, a large portion of Bridgeport, and our neighbors in North Bronxville and South Loop.
Ms. Wong, excuse me, can you please conclude?
Yes, it is a plan that would create a racially and economically diverse high school, not just serving the well-to-do in South Loop, but also the low-income families in North Bronxville and the new immigrants in Armour Square and Bridgeport. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, please, Andrew Broy.
Good morning, CEO Jackson, President Clark, members of the board, Andrew Broy with Inks. On behalf of the Chicago charter community, I would like to add my voice to those who support Dr. Jackson's appointment and welcome her as the new CEO. She is the right person for at the right time for this position. I'd also like to say a few words about the district high school plans in Inglewood. While the discussion has been justifiably passionate given the stakes, it has often been lacking in data. I want to share something about that today. The press has covered extensively the fact that the majority of students, in fact 91% of high school students who reside in Inglewood, do not attend a zoned high school. They haven't covered another fact, and this fact may surprise you. Students don't just travel out of Inglewood. Many, many CPS students travel in to Inglewood. In fact, more than 2,000 currently enrolled CPS students attend schools in Inglewood. And it's not just Lindblom, a selective high school. Consider two of our member schools. Urban Prep Inglewood enrolls 262 students in Inglewood, and 200 of those students travel into Inglewood to attend. Noble Johnson, 803 students. 495 of those travel into Inglewood to attend. So what is the policy lesson here for those who care about great schools everywhere? It's that families are willing to travel if they're convinced there's the right school for them. That belies the notion that there is some exodus out of Inglewood. In fact, there's a flow into Inglewood. So let's make sure, as we think about consolidations and adding school options, that we all work together to ensure that Inglewood families, like families across the city, have access to strong schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broy. Our next speaker, please, Joy Clendenning, followed by speaker number 6, Jennifer Johnson, speaker 10, Jackson Potter, and speaker 20, Sarah Rothschild. Ms. Clendenning.
Good morning, Joy Clendenning, CPS parent. Raise your hand for Illinois Public Education. Raise your hand strongly opposes the closing of NTA and the 4 neighborhood high schools in Englewood. Dr. Jackson, we'd like to thank you for showing up to the City Council and the Illinois House hearings on special education, although these were forced by a coalition of 11 organizations who requested ISB investigate CPS. We really appreciate that you are taking some ownership of the problems around special education and seem much more open to working on the dire issues than your predecessor. That said, we do need a fully elected representative school board that will be accountable to the public. Last week, CPS finally published space utilization data more than a year late. State law requires this data to be published annually, but it was not released at all for 2016. We're pleased that CPS lowered the threshold for efficient and overcrowded statuses, but the way CPS calculates space still eludes us. The magnitude of the changes between 2015 and 2017 make no sense. How can CPS have added 855 classrooms at 232 schools and lost 580 classrooms at 192 other schools. Many schools marked efficient are using hallways, stairwells, and other inappropriate spaces for learning. There's nothing transparent in the way CPS has released this data, and we continue to reject CPS's use of 30 students per classroom as an acceptable class size. Many groups, like Blocks Together, worked diligently on the goal of a transparent, accountable, democratic educational facilities process, a process that involved those most impacted by any decisions. And the spirit of the resulting legislation was that once a year, CPS would reflect upon and update the use of buildings to guide investments. CPS needs a comprehensive facilities plan, a real plan with stakeholder input and best practices. The so-called 10-year master plan does not do this. One reason this matters is because CPS makes super high-stakes decisions using this data. There are good practices out there about how to measure capacity and actual use of school spaces, but CPS continues to come up with its own methods. This makes no sense. It's not good for kids and not good for taxpayers. Dr. Jackson, as an experienced educator, we look forward to standing up to the mayor with you and instead use best educational practices rather than this relentless business model which hurts our kids and betrays taxpayers, our children, our schools, our city.
President Clark, can
I yes, hold on a moment before this next speaker goes. Dr. Jackson.
With the microphone, but I did want to just respond to Ms. Clendening's comments. We did make an attempt to make the utilization more accurate. You mentioned the threshold changed, and there were some changes based on principal feedback about how we were calculating space, but I would love to have our team sit down and just walk you through that methodology. You may not agree with it, but we do want to explain how we came up with some of those things and just see. The goal is to make this a dynamic document, not something that we just post once a year. President Clark made it clear that us missing the deadline was unacceptable, so we won't do that again. But I would love to sit down with folks from Raise Your Hand and just walk through the methodology. The goal is for this to be a dynamic document, and it has no useful purpose if people don't agree with the data that's in there. So if you're open to it, we would love to sit down and just explain the methodology. Okay.
Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Jen Johnson, and I work at Chicago Teachers Union. Only after the December 1st announcement are all members of communities impacted by proposed school closings provided forums to raise their voices, and only until the board votes are they able to try to stop those proposed closings. So in less than 3 months, from announcement to vote, the board could decide to close all 4 public neighborhood high schools serving Black students in Inglewood. Less than 3 months to decide to take away a high-performing elementary school, National Teachers Academy, from its Black students. Less than 3 months to decide to co-locate a well-connected, SUPS-connected charter school with Hirsch, an underserved neighborhood high school serving Black students. A little more than a year ago, I had the pleasure to be assigned to help lead a task force with CPS officials and colleagues to implement new contract language for 20 to 55 community schools. Our task force has been working very hard. Unfortunately, money still has not been spent. We hope that CPS will agree to fund the maximum number of schools for all 4 years, the length of the contract. But right now, CPS says it's secured funds for only 20 schools and only for the length of this coming school year through June 2019 from an unidentified source. To keep this project going, we've jumped through hoop after hoop after hoop. We've changed our task force participants when CPS questioned community partners being involved. An RFQ that we worked on was recently, thankfully, unstalled after being stalled for nearly 3 months. We've agreed to participate in every bureaucratic process that CPS has demanded to work on this initiative to get the resources to those 20 schools. But this is in stark contrast to the process used for closing schools. Why is it that when Black community residents loudly disagree about the closing of their school in the forums provided on a very tight timetable are not seen as a reason to delay or reevaluate the plan? Residents of Inglewood are clear about how their schools have been divested in of resources over time, as justified by school choice and student-based budgeting. The NTA school community, yes, was very clear about which students are being asked to move schools. Don't ignore what the community actually wants. Instead of closing schools, we should be taking the time to collaboratively examine data from the new CPS high school application so we can plan to help and provide support for neighborhood schools that struggle in the enrollment hunger games, which is what it is right now. We should be working to get all of the state funds that are allotted from the new evidence-based model so that we can build a district of sustainable community schools and not just partner on 20. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Our next speaker, please, Jackson Potter.
Hi, I'm Jackson Potter. I'm with the CTU. Thanks for letting me speak today. Dr. Jackson, I will not be getting on the Love Fest bandwagon, not out of disrespect. I think it's imprudent too early in your tenure. A lot of important decisions. So far, so good. I think you're making positive change, but let's see what's to come. I do remember when we were debate coaches. I was at Englewood High School, you at South Shore. I think we were pretty good debate coaches.
I just remember winning, but
I remember it very differently. There were a lot of rounds. When I attended my first board meeting as a delegate at Englewood High School. That was in 2005. And now you're on the verge of potentially closing the school that was open to replace the Englewood High School. I don't want to be here in 5 years when you're deciding to close the new school you're about to build. Today at U of C Lab, there are members of the school communities you are thinking about closing who are attempting to enroll their children in the U of C Lab where Ram sends his children, where students actually get what they deserve. They have an aide in every classroom. They have full-time school nurse. They have a social worker. They have a 10-to-1 teacher-student ratio. They have 150 different kinds of courses. They have 17 AP classes, 40 different clubs, and a school librarian, which many of our high schools are without. So I would argue that this board can't just think about which schools to remain open or which schools to build, but how do we keep those schools open? How do we invest much more in the children who have been shortchanged over years of institutional neglect and racism? So if you took, for example, the $100 million that you're thinking of for the new school, you could invest half of that into building 500 units of rehabbed affordable housing for the students in temporary living situations which dominate the student population in those 4 buildings. That would be thinking out of the box. That would be bringing people back into the community. That would be doing what CHA, I'll finish up, has refused to do. So making the existing student body travel 5 to 8 miles outside their school community is making them walk the gauntlet every day. When my students saw their siblings have to go to Robeson when Englewood was closed, 0.9 miles away, many of them dropped out, left the community because the gang issues were too stark. And Mr. Clark, you mentioned that when the School Closings Commission was talking. So please, don't foreclose on the future of these students. You have a historic opportunity to go way beyond what we normally have done. Let's choose better, choose wisely, and choose sustainable community schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker, please, is Sarah Rothschild, followed by speaker number 9, Shannon Sullivan. We will then have speaker number 13, Bradford Murray.
Hi, my name is Sarah Rothschild, and I work for the CTU. I have worked on the Chicago Education Facilities Task Force since 2010. This task force was legislated to evaluate the gross inequities in CPS's capital improvement program. As a result of national best practice research with experts in school facility planning, the task force passed state legislation in 2011 that requires CPS to develop a 10-year facility master plan that promotes equity and democracy across the district, and especially to protect Chicago's most vulnerable students. This is not happening. There is literally no capital planning. This new $75 million Englewood High School is not intended for the current teenagers of Englewood. There's no specific plan for these kids because the school transition plans are totally vague. The reason we are in this situation is because this board has approved the oversaturation of charter and private alternative schools while ignoring the needs of neighborhood schools. These schools have high IEP, STLS, and mobility rates, statistics exacerbated by charter expansion. CPS claimed in the draft facility master plan published in 2016 that it would help under-enrolled schools boost their enrollment. Instead, you're creating a gaping hole in the South Side, devoid of any neighborhood schools. Gaping hole. It would cost significantly less to invest in and support the existing schools than to build a new one. But that's the whole point. This plan for Englewood has nothing to do with the kids living there today. This is a plan for the future higher socioeconomic kids you're hoping to attract so you can boost the test scores and claim another successful school improvement initiative. And meanwhile, the current students get scattered. Many will leave the city, disappear, or end up in schools that won't get any of the money designated for receiving schools. All of this chaos is because the unelected school board refuses to comply with state law. I really hope legislators institute a state investigative committee to review your lack of compliance before you push more students out of their community and the city.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, Shannon Sullivan. Last call. Next speaker, please, Speaker 13, Bradford Murray, followed by Speaker number 14, Catherine Henchuk, then Speaker number 2, Noah Nelson, and Speaker 15, Paul Kent. Please proceed.
Hi, Brad Murray from the American Federation of Teachers. I'm here today to raise some issues about Distinctive Schools and the related organizations run by Distinctive's founder, Dr. Joseph Wise. Distinctive Schools is the approved charter operator for the proposed charter operator for the Arts in Motion Charter School that is being considered for co-location within Hirsch. I'm concerned about the potential for conflicts of interest between the various for-profit and nonprofit entities controlled by Dr. Wise. Besides Distinctive Schools, Dr. Wise operates 2 for-profit consulting firms which have a business relationship with CPS. I'm troubled by the links these companies have to former CPS officials, especially in light of the lucrative contracts that have been awarded to Dr. Wise's firms. Take Atlantic Research Partners. According to the Sun-Times, Atlantic has received $5 million in contracts from CPS since 2011. Last year, they were approved for an additional $1 million sole source contract. The first of these contracts was approved by Ron Huber when he was CEO of CPS. When Mr. Huber left, he went to go form a for-profit company with Dr. Wise. During 2013 and 2014, Barbara Bird Bennett received payments from a third company run by Dr. Wise. During that same period, CPS exercised a renewal option in Atlantic's contract, netting Dr. Wise's consulting firm $2.4 million. This is not just a CPS problem. Conflict of interest concerns about Dr. Wise's companies have been raised in Lorain, Youngstown, and just yesterday in Baltimore County. We are also concerned about Distinctive paying for Dr. Wise's apartment, and we are concerned about a troubling history of Distinctive's board members hiring their relatives. I respectfully ask that the board and the Inspector General's office conduct a thorough due diligence review on Distinctive Schools before awarding this co-location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Our next speaker, please, Catherine Henchuk.
My name is Catherine Henchuk. I'm a member of Parents for Teachers and the parents of a CPS student. I'm here today to express opposition to the school closings in my neighborhood, the South Loop, and Englewood. This whole closing process has been a total scam. When CPS announced guidelines for school actions, they said they were only taking actions that had community support. I've been to some of the community meetings, and it's been quite clear that they do not have community support. In fact, at one of the meetings in Englewood, one of the speakers said he signed up to speak in favor of the proposal, even though he was against it, as that got him slot number 8. His friend who signed up to speak with him against it got number 52. And at those community meetings, 4 members of the Englewood Steering Committee, which is supposed to be working with CPS on the new school, publicly resigned in protest over the way CPS is manipulating the process and the lack of any real community input. The process has also been a scam because CPS has not been honest about what it's proposing. The Englewood school actions are not about building a new high school. They're about closing every single high school in a community the size of Arlington Heights. And while CPS is calling the NTA closing a boundary change, it's a school closing. A parent at one of the hearings there had a great analogy. If I get a hot dog one day at a hot dog stand and I come back next day and it's a taco stand, that hot dog stand has been closed. CPS has consistently lied to the community. Over the summer, Englewood families were told that their high schools would be consolidated and that students from the current schools would eventually go to a new school. But that's not true. No student who's currently attending the 4 Englewood schools will go into that new school. And finally, it's a scam because it's so blatantly racist. Part of the rationale for building a new high school in the South Loop is because that white middle-class families won't send their children to the underfunded Wendell Phillips. Yet that same school is a receiving school for students displaced by the Englewood closings. What message are we sending to our students if we say that one school is not good enough for white middle-class kids, but it's fine for black low-income kids?
Ms. Henchuk?
Yeah.
Can you please conclude?
Yeah, I've got...
Your time is up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Dr. Jackson, please, you've got a choice. Put our children first. Don't put the mayor first. You've been saying all the right things, but now it's time to do the right things. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Speaker number 2, Noah Nelson.
Hello, my name is Noah Nelson. I'm a recent graduate of Howard University and a product of public schools. I'm here today because defending equity in education is important to me. Black and brown people are continually shuffled around districts as their homes are torn down to make way for transient schools. Notwithstanding this history, NTA families, staff, and students still invested immeasurable capital inside and outside the classroom to transform their school from a level 3 to a level 1. This triumph was quickly met with despair. Despite the data proving NTA's success closing the achievement gap, they will still be the latest victims of a cold wave of gentrification sweeping through the South Loop. The fact that NTA provides top-quality education, health care, and family support to 80% low-income and African-American students is insignificant in the face of the wishes of the politically connected and affluent. If this sounds familiar, it's because it is. While black students were 40% of Chicago's school district population in 2013, they made up 88% of those affected by the closures. The NTA plan is a continuation of these outdated policies that ostensibly claim integration but further marginalize our people. Real integration must be achieved by investing in schools like Dunbar and Phillips so they can serve South Loop families. This will increase the school's ratings and rewrite the negative stereotypes that are sapping the school's potential to serve high and low income families. It's obvious the people that claim to be on our side during election season continually attack our neighborhoods through their vice-like grip on the public education system. CPS claims to engage the community when making these decisions like this, but the current system of appointments to these positions acts as a buffer against political accountability. I urge the board members to become intimate with all the communities in Chicago, not give some preferential treatment over others.
Mr. Nelson, can you please conclude?
A school board that can lead Chicago into the future is one brave enough to tell those in power they're wrong. Save NTA, save our communities, and save our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, please. Speaker 15, Paul Kent.
Hello, Mr. President, Dr. Jackson. My name is Dr. Paul Kent. I'm a pediatric oncologist at Rush. I'm also a professor at Rush, and I teach the health equity class with Dr. David Ansel. You may be familiar with his work. He's the first person to ever demonstrate that the disparity in health outcomes for blacks is socially based and not genetically based right here in Chicago. And he published the book Death Gaps this summer. I'm not a parent. I don't live in Chicago. I don't have a dog in this fight. What I do have is four adopted children through the foster care system of Chicago. All four of them with special needs, one with HIV, one with Down syndrome, and a couple other with drug exposure. All of them are at my school in River Forest. All of them, their literacy levels have gone from 4th or 5th percentile to the 50th percentile. Now, why is that? Because I live in River Forest, because our schools are among the best in the state, because my wife and I are wealthy. My wife is a pediatrician. She's one of the doctors for for the foster care system. She's one of the leaders, and she is running for the Illinois chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. As a pediatrician and as an oncologist, I have two patients waiting for me when I go back. One is a child who's dying of cancer, and one who's newly diagnosed. We're often told that the first rule of medicine is do no harm. The second rule is treat the patient like they're your own child. These kids could be my children. They easily could be my children, my two 8th graders. They are not being treated the way they would be treated in River Forest. They are not being treated like my children. If you're familiar with adverse child experiences, the ACEs research, there is over 120 published articles in the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, looking at long-term outcome for adverse childhood experiences. What do you think the #1 predictor of early death was? Was it obesity? Was it smoking? Was it drugs? Was it violence? Was it HIV? Was it diabetes? Was it family history? It was literacy. The data that was collected by the Health Equity Alliance showed that literacy, especially for black males like my son Isaiah, went all the way up to meet that of the white males in the course of a few years. My son has normal life expectancy now. These children's life expectancy could drop the equivalent of about 11 years, as if they were smoking 10 cigarettes a day, if you choose to harm them by taking this nurturing environment away from them. This would not happen in my community. I asked the same story to my friends and family members. I told them it was our school, and they said, that's ridiculous, that's crazy. And then I said, no, I wasn't talking about our school. I was talking about their school. That's how they would have reacted in my community. Thank you very much. By the way, I also was the former math teacher for Tammy Duckworth. One of my researchers, Noah, here, and another one of my researchers, Antonio. His aunt is the chief of staff for Dr. Danny Davis. And Arnie Duncan graduated with me from Harvard basketball team. I think they should be involved. I don't know. I know they don't have power in this institution, but I think they would be interested in this story as well. Thank you so much, you kids, for being so brave.
As you leave the podium, Doctor, as you leave the podium, through other involvements I have in the health industry,
yes,
I'm familiar with some of the information.
ACEs?
Yes,
yes, great.
And some of the information you
testified to. Can I give you this paper?
Sure.
Okay.
In addition to that, though, I just wanted to make two observations. One is a sidebar. You represent a great institution, Rush Hospitals, absolutely magnificent medical institution. I spent a lot of time there. And your passion around your statements, I respect. And mostly, I don't necessarily disagree with the information and data that you were sharing with us. Your undertone, we can debate, but that's neither here nor there. I look at these young people that are here, and that I've already commented on a couple of them. But this is wonderful to look out and see that our young future leaders are participating and listening to this type of public debate, and hopefully learning that there really are two sides to every coin. Even if you come with a single perspective, a single set of beliefs, often there's another set that sometimes is equally compelling. But it's wonderful to see you here. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. And thank you to the students for staying. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President. And our next group. I'll just wait a moment. Thank you. And our next group of speakers will be speaker number 16, please. Steve Tozer, followed by speaker 29, Bright Darrell. 33, Ronald Lawless. 34, Dory Collins. 38, Darlene Banner Settle. 39, Erlene Green. 43, Carl West. 53, Catherine Jones. 54, Marshall Hatch. And 55, Joyce Chapman.
Thank you very much. I'm Steve Tozer, coordinator of the Urban Education Leadership Program at UIC and the son of two proud graduates of Chicago Public Schools. The UIC program in Urban Ed Leadership is now in its 15th year, and it's widely recognized as one of the nation's premier university programs for preparing urban principals. Well over 100 of our graduates are currently serving as CPS principals, as assistant principals, and as district level officers. Quite a few of them are in this room. I begin with that program simply to make 2 points. First, I've had the privilege of knowing many impressive CPS leaders over the years, the kind who each of us would want to lead our own kids' schools. But my second point is that even among those impressive leaders, Dr. Jackson stands out as exceptional. We all know the story of her steady rise from CPS teacher to founding principal of 2 West Side schools to network chief and chief education officer. That story's been repeated many times today. No other CEO or school superintendent in CPS history demonstrates this kind of career trajectory or preparation for this job. Her skill and character have been tested at every level. She's a very special leader. Successful school leaders learn to lead vision, people, and systems. They're able to mobilize others around a common vision for successful student learning, develop the people to achieve that vision, and put systems in place to support those people. Dr. Jackson has learned to do all these things exceedingly well, and she'll continue to learn. She reaches out to the nation's best researchers, and she listens to those within the system, including families and students, as part of that learning process. I have seen her address the network chiefs with the message that despite all the great recognition that has come to CPS in the past year, the system cannot rest on those achievements. As she said to the chiefs, we are simply not where we need to be.
Mr. Tozer, excuse me, can you please conclude?
2 sentences. CPS is where it is today as a consequence of decades of economic disinvestment in specific CPS communities, and the way forward is fraught with difficulties. At this point in our history, CPS students deserve a leader who understands CPS from the inside out, who is nationally respected, and will be both ethical and relentless in using research data and community input in taking the system to the next level. I believe Dr. Jackson is exactly that leader.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ronald Lawless, and I wanted to give some letters from our CAP. I'm with the Austin Community Action Community Council, and I'm here on behalf of the organization to give our support for Dr. Janet Jackson for the position of Chief Executive Officer. This support does not come hollow, but as allies to a woman who had the audacity to imagine that she could be the CEO of the 3rd largest school district in the nation. We are thankful that Dr. Janet Jackson imagined herself in this position because it means dreams do and can come true. This same imagination is the imagination she's asked of her students, Black, white, Latino, Asians, and others to believe. It is great to imagine and believe, but Dr. Jackson put in the work. She is now to be, hopefully, our CEO, who will be one of us, and an active parent who will understand our needs and concerns. When I look at Dr. Jackson here today, I see the little girls and boys of CPS of different ethnicities waiting to be the next Dr. Jackson because of her dream. I see the hopes and dreams of a little Black girl who said, yes, I can. And today, we're here to say, yes, Dr. Janet Jackson as CPS new CEO. It is not every day we get the chance to support one of our own. And when I say one of our own, I mean a CPS product. Who better to run the system than the person who is now being considered? The person who learned from the system, taught in the system, led schools as a principal in the system, and network chief in the system. Is Dr. Jackson perfect? Who among us is? But she will learn where learning is needed. She will listen to the cries of parents. She will surround herself with those who have the same passion for education and for parents who want the best for their children. These parents...
Mr. Lawless, can you please conclude?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, we, the CAP members of Austin, want to say, we believe in you. We trust you. We believe in what you stand for, integrity, commitment to both parents and their children, and your love for what the education can do. So, we say, yes, Dr. Janet Jackson for CEO.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Please state your name.
Dory Collins. Good afternoon, Board President Clark, members of the board, and Dr. Jackson. As a parent of a 2012 graduate of Chicago Public Schools, I served on both the local school council and parent advisory council, kindergarten through 12th grade. And post-graduation, I continued to serve as a committed citizen of Chicago, parent advocate, and community liaison. As a member currently of the Englewood Community Action Council, I worked closely with thousands of parents and community members in support of the new high school recommended for start in 2019. I stand here today in support of confirmation of Dr. Janice Jackson as the next Chief Executive Officer of Chicago Public Schools. parent and community members across the city of Chicago also stand in agreement with this decision. It is no surprise. Your natural journey has led you to this seat of former Chicago Public School student, teacher, principal, chief network officer, and chief education officer. You clearly have the talent, commitment, and vision to legitimately claim the title of chief officer as a chief executive officer for Chicago Public Schools. You have been the driving force behind various initiatives as Go CPS, which has provided improved access and equity for all Chicago Public School students. These efforts have improved record high graduation rates. Your progressive, forward-thinking, and innovative ideas set the bar high for the success of all students throughout the city of Chicago. Your vision of promoting academic quality, building stakeholder trust and integrity, all while achieving fiscal stability, is what the district needs and deserves, and the main reason why I stand here today continuing those efforts.
Ms. Collins?
I will do my job to continue to educate parents and community across this district, and we stand with you. We trust you, Dr. Jackson. We believe in you, and we will continue to pray your effort and strengthen this heavy lift for this system and district. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I did submit, I'm not going to read all of that, but my name is Darlene O'Banner, and congratulations to Ms. McDade. That was a great appointment there, and I do support Dr. Jackson, and I will be having T-shirts in Inglewood saying this, because we will support. I'm a resident of Inglewood, and I've been in Inglewood for 48 years. I attended Loop 02, which is on 65th and Sealy. I went to Gage Park High School, so I know how it feels to be somewhere where you're not wanted. I know how it feels to go to school, to be somewhere in a building where another community don't want you there. I graduated there in the class of 75. I am a full product of CPS, as well as my family. I have one daughter, 5 grandchildren, and 2 great-grand. I completed 1 semester at Jackson State. Currently, I serve on the LSC, PAC, Inglewood CAC. I'm the chairperson for the Policy Committee for Early Childhood. I am a CPS Parent Ambassador. I'm a facilitator, volunteer for Parent University Training Center at Earl STEM, and I am acting now as the Vice President of West Inglewood Coalition. And I also hold 35 years of work experience. I'm not going to read the rest of that. My work speaks for myself. I be in the school every day, all day, and I serve my community. And I do support the proposal for the new high school, and I do support everything that's in that proposal. And I feel like our children should have a chance. Stop these other communities. I heard all these people coming up here that has nothing to do with Inglewood. I see other people coming out because it's election time. They want me to come out and vote. So that's what it is. So I'm asking you all to please give Inglewood a chance, and please vote. I support that proposal, and that's all I have to say for now. But congratulations, and you know I love you both.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, please.
Good afternoon to the board. My name is Earlene Green, and I'm at Ella Flagg Young Elementary School. I'm at Marshall High School, and I'm at Al Raby. I'm on a local school council at all, and I'm also the vice president of Marshall High School Alumni Association. But I come here on behalf of Dr. Jackson. We love her, but most of all, we like her. Like is like love on steroids. So you know we appreciate you. So I can say a whole lot, but most everybody done said what I had to say. We know you, we appreciate you. I've been knowing you for over 10 years. Wow. My niece graduated from Al Raby, and she was her principal. And that's all I've been hearing. And that was 10 years ago. So I just like to say, we claiming it all. You are our CEO. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I also like to say we appreciate you for having a parent university. People don't know, but the parent university is excellent. It's a place where the community can go and learn, the teachers can go and learn, the students can go and learn, and it's one in every network. So we really appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Ms. Green. Our next speaker, please, Joyce Chapman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You, President Clark, board members, and our audience. My name is Joyce Chapman. I serve on the Far South Community Action Council. I serve in the capacity of the chairperson. I am the owner and founder of Pullman CDC. I serve on the Gately Park Advisory Council, and I serve in the capacity of president. I served on Neighborhood Housing Services in the capacity of vice president until it closed down in September 2017. I'm saying all that to say, you know when you see a leader. And that is you, Dr. Janice Jackson. Continue to use your voice to guide us and encourage us. Your voice, therefore, is very important. An angry voice, a coarse voice, a cold voice, and an imperious voice. None of this will communicate how wonderful and productive you are, Dr. Janice Jackson. Continue to be like you are, the humanistic leader that you are, who will continue to encourage us, others with your bright, warm voice. And the example I like to use is one day she was over at Wendell Smith School. I said, "Hey, Dr. Jackson." She turned around, she said, "Hey, Joyce." And she said, "Well, let me share something with you." And she shared something, I was in awe that you would even have that communication with me. So I thank you for that. And that person's doing well too.
Oh,
I see.
Good to hear. So
they will say, "What a lovely voice you have. For I am inspired when you speak." Because when you was at Brooks that day in that heavy rainstorm, the inclement weather, and Pedro called and said, "You think we're going to get enough people out at Brooks to listen to her?" Yes, we did. I think we had over 200 people in the auditorium at Brooks College Prep. And your voice resonated with us. And what you said,
Ms. Chapman.
you made it easy for us to understand the educational process of Chicago Public Schools. So in conclusion, now before you are selective, I know you're going to do it today, President Clark and board members, to be the next Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Public Schools for the city of Chicago, what a great choice we have. Becoming this kind of a leader to show actual proof in your educational professional achievement, but to your humanistic leadership quality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman. Our next group of speakers, please. Speaker 17, Caitlin Willerson, 23, Patrick Worthy, 27, Yadira Montes de Oca, and 42, Rochelle Lee.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Please state your name.
Hello, my name is Catalina Willerson, and my daughter is a kindergartner at Raoul Elementary School. I'm here to tell you about Raoul has not only made a huge difference in her life, but also in the life of her big sister, who proudly was part of Raoul's first graduating class. One reason I choose to send my daughters to Raoul is their great approach to developing well-rounded and successful scholars. From the very first day of school, the staff puts the idea on the children's mind that they will not just attend, but will indeed graduate from college. But in order to accomplish their goals, teachers emphasize the needs to always show the three important values: pride, success, and honor. And this attitude has had a big impact on my daughter's continued success. Over the years, Raoul has provided support to my daughters and myself as well. Their teachers were extremely helpful in preparing my daughter for the selective enrollment process, as she was successful in getting into her first choice, Jones College Prep. When my daughter graduated, when my daughter had a problem in a subject, they will show both her and I ways to improve. They also help her improve her self-confidence in not just academics, but socially and emotionally. Finally, they have been like family to us, and in fact, you will often hear staff refer to everyone involved with the school as the Raoul family. My high schooler still returns to visit her favorite teachers because they had such a huge impact on her life. After all the great things I have experienced at Raoul, I have peace of mind with my little one beginning her journey at Raoul. Thank you for all of your support of Raoul Elementary, and welcome to our family, CPS new interim CEO, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Ms. Willerson. Our next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Engineer Yadia Montesoca, and my son and daughter attend Raoul Elementary School, HRS school in Chicago's North Side. I would like to tell you about how Raoul has made an impact in my life. As a DeVry student in computer engineering technology, I was placed in an internship with Raoul IT department. As I got to know all staff people and students, I learned that good things were happening at Raoul. Staff members treat each other as family members, very warmly, friendly, and kindly. What really caught my attention was the way teachers treat each student and how rich their classes are. In class, they teach with love, dedication, and encourage each student to keep learning as they grow with pride, honor, and success. Moreover, Raoul offers a before and after school program, which works just perfectly for me because its schedule matches my needs, and the program helps children with homework and enrichment activities that keep our children safe and away from street danger. Since I transferred my children to Raoul from a CPS school, they have both grown academically and their grades have improved. For all the great things happening here, I am so happy for the decision I made to move my children to Raoul and be part of this beautiful family. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story. Also, I'd like to welcome CPS new interim CEO, Dr. Jackson, and express how much we're looking forward to working with you. I encourage you and all the entire CPS board to visit Raoul.
Thank you, Ms. Montesioca. Our next speakers, Mr. President, will be speaker number 18, Corey Harris, followed by speaker 19, Sherry Miles. We will then have speaker number 21, Helena Stragle, 22, Brian Ortega, 26, Francisco Flores, 40, Rosa Nadal, and 50, Rosa Maria Ortiz. Speaker 18, Corey Harris, last call. Speaker 19, Sherry Miles, last call. Helena Stagel, Brian Ortega, Francisco Flores. Gracias. Francisco Flores.
Good morning, President Clark, distinguished board members, and Mrs. Jackson. My name is Francisco Flores, and my three kids attended Carlos Fuentes Elementary School, which is part of the Acero Schools Network. I appreciate the district's focus on school quality and choice and its support for charter schools. Fuentes has been a very good option for my children. In focus on personal growth and has a flexible learning environments, so students learn in their own pace. In addition to the core curriculum, the school offers enrichment courses, athletics, and after school programming, so there are a lot of opportunities for students to learn and grow outside the classrooms, as well as in Fuentes. My children are learning the skills they will need to succeed in high school and beyond. I believe every children in Chicago deserves to go to a great public schools, and it is important for parents to have choices. I am very blessed that I was able to choose Fuentes for my children. And I encourage the board to continue its support for choice and for charter schools that are succeeding and providing students with a quality education. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. Our next speaker, please, Rosa María Ortiz.
Buenas tardes, Presidente Clark y miembros de la Junta Directiva y señora Jackson. Mi nombre es Rosa María Ortiz. Mi nieta Rosa es alumna de octavo en la Escuela Primaria Bartolomé de las Casas y he sido voluntaria y simpatizante de las escuelas por más de 10 años. Casas es un recurso valioso en nuestra comunidad. La directiva, mis Vinis, los maestros y el personal verdaderamente están dedicados al éxito académico de los alumnos. Apoyo a la escuela en todo lo que puedo, ya sea como voluntaria en eventos escolares o asistir en eventos como con otros padres para abogar por la escuela. En Chicago tenemos muchas escuelas charter sobresalientes, así como las escuelas acero, las cuales educan a comunidades mayormente latinas, les dan un apoyo a las familias y es importante, muchos de nosotros no tenemos los recursos para escuelas privadas y las escuelas charter nos ayudan a proveer a nuestros hijos y nietos a una educación de alta calidad y merecen y necesitan para sobresalir en la vida. Espero que en la Junta Directiva cumpla su promesa a los padres de Chicago de financiar a las escuelas charter de manera justa. En la Escuela Primaria Bartolomé de las Casas ayudaron a Rosa Ortiz con autismo severo. Le doy gracias a todos los maestros por su apoyo. Gracias.
My name is Rosa Maria Ortiz. My granddaughter Rosa is in 8th grader at Bartolomé de las Casas Elementary School. I have been a supporter, volunteer at the school for more than 10 years. Casas is a valuable resource for our community. Mrs. Mix Binish, the teachers and the staff, all of them are truly committed to the academic success of the students. I do all I can do to support the school, whether as a volunteer in the school events, coming down here, for instance, today with other parents to advocate on behalf of the school. We have many very successful charter schools in Chicago, such as Acero schools, which serves predominantly Hispanic communities like us, like ours in the area. They give families a choice, and that is important. Many of us can't afford private schools, and charter schools give us the option and help us to provide our children and grandchildren with the quality education they deserve and they need to get ahead in life. I hope the board keep the promise to all Chicago parents and will be funding charter schools fairly in the future. Also, I want to say that in the school, Bartolomé de las Casas, they helped Rosa Ortiz that had severe autism. So I have to thank all the teachers, right? All the teachers for the support and also all the parents that came with me in support of the school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Our next speakers, Mr. President, will be speaker number 25, Vivian Porras, followed by speaker 32, Kathleen McInerney. We will then have speaker number 28, Cindy Ramos Rico, followed by speaker 30, Andrea Tolzman.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vivian Porras, and I am actually a parent. My daughter is actually in kindergarten, just started at CICS West Belton. So I'm actually pretty new in learning a lot of the stories that keep going on, and I have to say that I'm very blessed in having my daughter actually in a charter school. And hoping to learn a lot more of the school and how else I can be an advocate and how else I can actually have more parents be an advocate in our school. But just basically wanted to talk about a little bit of our school and just kind of say how amazing the process has been for me as a new parent, for my husband and I, to get our child into either CPS schools, charter schools, Catholic schools all around the world. I wasn't sure where to put her, and all my questions were, is she going to be okay? Are the teachers going to be okay with her? Is the curriculum good enough for her? Just so I can have an educated child, just like I did growing up. And my mother being supportive, and as well as me wanting to be supportive as well to my kid. I just want to understand that and let everybody know that at CICS West Belden, it has been amazing through the whole process, and just thankful to all the teachers and all the people and the staff. It's just been great from the moment I picked up the phone call, from the moment I called and asked for the process. It's been just amazing, and very thankful for everybody that has been there with me. I've heard also through a lot of people wondering where to put my daughter in through the whole process. I heard people talking about West Belden here, or just being such big advocates about it. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard of it. I always thought it was a Catholic church, Catholic school, because it was next to a church. And they were like, no, it's amazing, it's amazing. So hearing so much about it made me just go ahead and proceed with applying for it. And I'm so grateful I got accepted, and so grateful I have amazing staff and the teachers. Like I said, there's incidents, whatever I can do, I can pick up a phone call and call them or message them. Yes, thank you very much. And just letting them know that it makes me feel at ease, and like somebody said, peace of mind for me too. I can actually go to work and make sure my daughter is okay. So thank you at CICS West Belden, to all the teachers and to all the staff. Amazing. Thank you for everything, for making this new mom of school-age child just such an ease to do everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kathleen McInerney, and I am a teacher at CICS West Belden. CICS West Belden is one of the schools managed by Distinctive Schools, and we are managed by CICS, which is serving over 8,600 students in the city of Chicago. So I came today just kind of to highlight some of the things that are happening at West Belden. I've been there for 4 years, and in that 4 years we've been transitioning to a school where we personalize our learning. So our model for personalized learning is split into 4 parts. The first, which is flexible learning environments. So we try and use space, time, and talent differently in our building. Next, our students each have learner profiles where they identify their strengths, interests, goals, and passions. Students in my class personally love updating their profiles as they learn new things and gain new interests throughout the year. As a teacher, it's such a valuable tool to help get to know my students, make connections with them, as well as integrate their interests into their daily learning. From there, we use these to create personalized learning plans, and my students use their learning plans to reflect on what they have learned and then to choose how they want to show what they've learned. The last step we do is competency-based progression. So at West Belden, students move at their own pace when they're ready, based on the mastery of content, not just grade level and age. Our CICS West Belden students and parents report that they love coming to school every day. Together with our families, we believe we are preparing students for the next phase of their life. I also wanted to congratulate you, Dr. Jackson, on your new appointment at CPS. I know you've been to CICS West Belden in the past to see some of our personalized learning. And your visit and others like it means so much to our families and students. So I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to speak today, and I would like you guys all to come and visit if you can. Our doors are always open for you to come and see the life-changing work our students are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Cynthia Ramos Rico, and I graduated from Mushin College Prep High School in 2015. I'm currently a third-year student at Northwestern University, where I'm double majoring in social policy and sociology. Reflecting on where I am today, I know that Noble helped create a strong foundation for me to be successful in college by creating a strong sense of community and support. I came across Mushin because my parents wanted me to go to a school that would prepare me for college. Noble schools align with my parents' values, so they encouraged me to enroll at Noble. With the support of faculty and the strong sense of community, I was able to overcome society's expectations of a Latina from the southwest side of Chicago and graduate as salutatorian. I felt that Mushin gave me a chance to believe in myself. Noble's sense of community not only included teachers and students, but parents as well. Not once were my parents left out of the college application process. They were encouraged to communicate with my teachers throughout the entire process. Community support does not stop within the 4 years of high school. The community extends through our alumni network, which I'm currently utilizing. By utilizing it, I was given a chance to speak to professionals in the Chicago community as I am exploring my career interests. I want to raise awareness of the strong sense of community that is fostered in Noble schools because this is something that is special. Noble knows that community engagement with parents, students, alumni, community organizations, and churches is connected to the success of our students. Dr. Jackson, as the new CEO of CPS, welcome to our community. We look forward to working with you and all the stakeholders to ensure all students are successful. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, please, Ms. Tolzman, followed by Speaker 31, Christine Palmieri. We will then have Speaker 37, Jennifer Jones, and Speaker 60, Julie Salmon.
Hello, my name is Andrea Tolzman, and I'm with Raise Your Hand. Congratulations, Dr. Jackson. We are happy to see an educator leading the school district again, and we are happy to see your public acknowledgement of issues concerning our school communities and your actions towards solutions to improve the education of all our students. It's refreshing. I would also like to thank Dr. Jackson and the board for eliminating contracts with consultants that were connected to Forrest Claypool, and we'd love to see the list of those canceled contracts. For years, Raise Your Hand has been questioning the expensive contracts to well-connected cronies of the past couple of CEOs. If we start to look back over the decisions and actions that were initiated by Barbara Byrd Bennett and Forrest Claypool, we must also look at what motivated their decision-making. They both have a proven track record of making poor personal decisions, so it is possible they made poor professional decisions as well. With Dr. Jackson at the helm, this board should take a look at all the contracts that were entered into during the tenure of Mr. Claypool. Together, you can review and reflect on decisions made in the past to ensure they are successfully doing what is needed now. Many of these contracts are nearing the end of their term, and now is the time to look at them with fresh eyes and a mindset of, does this contract really help provide the best education to each and every student in this district? You have the power to address issues of school cleanliness, environmental health concerns, and the management of district facilities in the one-year renewals of the Aramark Custodial and the Sodexo Facilities Management contracts. These contracts need to be reviewed and reconsidered to determine if they are doing what was proposed. Are schools cleaner, healthier, and better cared for than when district employees took pride in these jobs? Also, an existing sole source contract with AUSL is on the table today to balloon by 75%, with the fiscal year 2018 amount nearly 5 times bigger than the original appropriated. Why? And for a company whose ties with the previous board president and past CAO have been questioned as inappropriate for years. And why is this board voting today to award a contract to begin developing a waitlist offer module for Go CPS when offer letters go out in less than 2 months? Shouldn't this have been part of the original contract and already done? There are some specific contracts being voted on today, but there are numerous contracts approved without question by this board.
Ms. Tolzman?
I'm wrapping up. Under the previous CEO that should be reviewed and considered for the ethical issues they pose. There are numerous contracts that are professional services contracts tied to crony companies and high-priced consultants that need to be reviewed and reconsidered. Please seize this moment to analyze the who, the why, and the what of every contract to ensure they are best serving our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tolzman. Our next speaker, please, Christine Palmieri. Jennifer Jones, last call. Julie Salmon. Moving on to the next speakers, Mr. President, we'll have Speaker 35, Veronica Hayes, followed by Speaker 36, Joan Lipschultz, then Speaker 41, Sarah Rios. Speaker 35, Veronica Hayes.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Rios. I come here today to you guys as a proud product of CPS Schools, an advocate for public education, a member of the board of directors at Erie Neighborhood House, which is a community center that partners and is a friend to CPS. But most importantly, I'm here as a mother of children in CPS schools. I came here to shed light on serious safety and communication concerns at Otis School. But I first want to mention the experience I had here at the last board meeting. Alongside the Harper School students, the way they were treated was a travesty, to say the least, as they were ignored and pushed to the end of the line. And the few that were allowed to enter only did because myself and a few other people gave up our spots. From what I saw here today, it shows me hope that there is going to be some progressive changes within this system. My daughters attended Otis School until September and November of 2017. I have brought handouts that show my paper trail and outline the safety and communications concern at the school. While there are several other issues, as the school has recently dropped in ranking, and after transferring my daughters, who were honor roll students at Otis, we were alerted that they were not even at grade level and are currently enrolled in after-school assistance to get them to grade level at their new CPS school. I have exhausted all avenues of accountability, which has brought me to this board. The network office facilitated a safety transfer for my oldest daughter out of Otis, but that's a Band-Aid, not a solution. I have asked both the school, LSC, and the network office what type of professional development, if any, takes place when a principal is ousted from a school surrounding a suicide of a student and immediately allowed to be appointed as a principal to a new school, which is the case at Otis. And I have gotten no answer. From my personal experience, I know there is no accountability under the current principal's leadership, and was even told by the network office that the principal will not put anything in writing as they don't want to be liable for an injury situation. I beg this board to take these issues seriously, and while you vote in our new CEO, whose prior position was Chief Education Officer,
Ms. Ria,
take into consideration why and how these inconsistencies and inequities are being allowed, especially in regards to administration throughout CPS. We definitely need transparency. Even though my students are no longer in Otis, I am being diligent in support of the school, which is in my neighborhood. And I would hate to see it become lofts like the other neighborhood schools that are in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speakers, Mr. President, are Speaker 47, Charlotte Myers, followed by Speaker 48, Arnold Stieber, followed by 49, Patricia Ramirez, 51, Edward Beavers, and the last speaker, 57, Adrian Leonard. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlotte Myers, and I am from Catalyst Circle Rock Charter School. I come by to share some positive stories that's going on in the Austin community that you won't hear on the news. I am a parent of a Catalyst graduate. My son graduated in 2013. As a result of Catalyst partnering with me as a parent, he went to one of the top 20 high schools, and as a result, I have an African-American male who's a freshman at Bradley University, and my story gets so much better. I have been given the opportunity to live out my passion as supporting parents. I am the parent engagement coordinator. I gave a copy of our annual report. Every year we host a Bring Your Child to School Day. The first year we had 100 fathers. This year we had over 200. So I say that to say that there's some great things going on in the Austin community. I have a group of parents that are engaged. They believe in what we believe in. And I thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to share our annual report with you. And congratulations on you. And this is an open invitation to come and see what we are all about. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Myers. Our next speaker, please, Arnold Stieber, last call. The next speaker, Patricia Ramirez, last call. Speaker 51, please, Mr. Beavers.
Good morning, President Clark, Dr. Jackson, and board members.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Ed Beavers, and I represent Country Financial. We're a financial partner with Chicago Public Schools. We've been a long supporter of CPS students and parents. As an organization that is dedicated to helping families become financially secure, we want to ensure that students and parents have a solid foundation. We want them to understand how to manage money, how to develop a budget, how to save, and moreover, how to have that plan to be financially secure. While many adults were taught money management when they were younger, a large percentage were not. They were not taught how to balance a checkbook or to develop a budget. That's why it's so important for our kids to learn about money at an early age, which is why we partnered with the Chicago Public Schools to bring financial education resources into CPS classrooms, and also to parents through the Parent University. Dr. Jackson, on behalf of Country Financial, we would like to say that we value the partnership with Chicago Public Schools and look forward to a continued partnership under your leadership, and welcome the opportunity to support your vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beavers. And our last speaker, Mr. President, Speaker 57, Adrienne Leonard.
Good afternoon. My name is Adrienne Leonard. I'm not a parent, neither am I an educator. I got involved in school reform as a missionary. This is my mission field. Currently, I am the manager of student advocacy for Distinctive Schools. Dr. Jackson, I graduated from John W. Cook over 45 years ago. I stand here today to say that the community involvement is very important. I began with Calumet High School, and I went Renaissance 2010, and a firm believer that if it's for us and about us, that we need to be part of the process. Currently, I'm working with Hirsch High School and Distinctive Schools, and I was saddened to find out that the community really had not been engaged to the extent that I felt it should. But I can proudly say today that in the cold and during the winter break, I went door to door to make sure that Mattie Hunter, the congressman, and I mean actually going door to door. And I've also taken time to talk with the students. And I can tell you from the standpoint of being a real community person to really believing that this is my mission field, it's not about the pay, but making sure that the right thing is done. I can say that I have not heard from one person that they are against co-location, not one person. The biggest concern there is the students that want to know what's going to happen to us. They have even told me, Miss Leonard, if they come in here and they're going to fix up one side of the building and don't fix up our side, we're going to tear it up. So I look at it as a child, and you got an older child and then you have a new baby. You got to give that older child a little attention too. And a lot of the staff there, they may have spoken out of compassion for the kids, because we're talking about a group of kids, many of them are taking care of themselves. Many of them have no one to speak up for them. So if nothing else, I know that the union, they have a job. Me and them folks, we've been going at it since 2002. But I respect them and they respect me. But at the end of the day, it's really about what's best for those children, not just the new ones coming in, but what are we going to do for the older children? We wanted to work together. Those children are not against another school coming in with them. They're not against it. Their question is, what about me? What's going to happen for us? Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. President, this concludes public participation.
Board members, are there any questions or comments based on the okay. All right, so seeing that there are no questions or comments, we will now, I need a motion to go into executive session. Board Member Ward, do you have a motion?
I move for the passage of motion number 18-0124 M01 and the commencement of a closed session to consider the subject specified in the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
4 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, we'll go into closed session. Okay, we're going to reconvene our Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I proceed, I would like to note that Dr. Hines has joined the board meeting by telephone conference. Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. President, I will now start with closed session items from the Acting General Counsel, and I will begin with new and continued counsel retentions. These items do require a vote, and they are: first report, the law firm Ansel Glink, Diamond Bush, Desani, and Kraftheller, PC, for new. The second report, the law firm Sanchez, Daniels, and Hoffman, LLP, for new. And the third report, the law firm Franzik, Radelet, PC, for continued. And the fourth report, the law firm Lineberger, Gogan, Blair, and Sampson, LLP, for continued retention. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I second.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Member Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dr. Hines?
Yes.
And Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays. I will continue with settlements, and these items do require a vote. The first report is approved settlement recommendation in Mashney versus Board of Education of the City of Chicago, case number 15 CV 10951. And the second report, property tax appeal refund, authorized settlement for Sherwin-Williams for property tax years 2012 through 2014. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will continue with law personnel matters. These items do require a vote, and they are: first report, appoint Assistant General Counsel, Department of Law, Libby N. Massey. Second report, appoint Assistant General Counsel, Department of Law, Miguel J. Peretta. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will continue with items from the Acting Chief Executive Officer and proceed with one collective bargaining item. This item does require a vote, and it's ratify tentative collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education of the City of Chicago and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 700. Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
And if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will now continue with talent recommendations, and these items do require a vote. The first report is transfer and appoint Chief Education Officer, Chief Education Office, Latonya McDade. The second report, transfer and appoint Chief of Staff to the Chief Executive Officer, effective January 1, 2018, and ratify all lawful actions taken as Chief of Staff to the Chief Executive Officer since January 1, 2018, Pedro Soto. And the third report is transfer and appoint Budget Director, Office of Management and Budget, Heather Wendell. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will continue with warning resolutions and one other matter for non-resident tuition, and these items do require a vote, and they are: first report, Christopher Constanzo, tenure teacher assigned to Thomas Kelly High School, and the second report, Saswati Koya, tenure teacher assigned to Chicago Academy High School. The third report is for Smitha Mathan, tenure teacher assigned to Consola B. York Alternative High School. And the one other matter for non-resident tuition, adopt finding that pupils are non-residents of the City of Chicago indebted to Chicago Public Schools for non-resident tuition. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, and I'll continue with items from the board, and these items do require a vote. I will begin with the appointment of the Chief Executive Officer. Resolution to appoint Chief Executive Officer and delegate authority to negotiate Chief Executive Officer's employment contract for Dr. Janice K. Jackson. Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote. And Dr. Jackson, we remove the acting, and I guess it makes you permanent.
Without hesitation and great enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. I'm honored.
Congratulations. I'll proceed, Mr. President, with tenure teacher dismissals. The first report, resolution by the Board of Education of the City of Chicago regarding the dismissal of Thomas Billups, tenure teacher assigned to Joseph Levitt Elementary School. The second report, resolution by the Board of Education of the City of Chicago regarding the dismissal of Michelle Hernandez, tenure teacher assigned to Thomas Kelly High School. And the third report, resolution by the Board of Education of the City of Chicago regarding the dismissal of Mark Kelly, tenure teacher assigned to Westridge Elementary School. And for the record, this report also adopts a supplemental opinion in order under separate cover. I will continue with the fourth report, resolution approving the Chief Executive Officer's recommendation Acting Chief Executive Officer's recommendation to dismiss the educational support personnel. And the fifth report, resolution approving the Acting Chief Executive Officer's recommendation to dismiss probationary appointed teachers. And for the record, Mr. President, I would like to note that on January 19, 2018, the board members and the Office of the Board received the Acting CEO's recommendation to dismiss probationary appointed teachers pursuant to Board Rule 4-1 and 105 ILCS 5/34-84. Her recommendation included the names of the teachers affected and the reasons, and she also noted that the teachers affected will be notified of their dismissal after adoption of the resolution. And the sixth report is the resolution authorizing the honorable termination of regularly certified and appointed teacher. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I believe Board Member Furlong has a motion, please.
I move that pursuant to Section 2.06D of the Open Meetings Act, board members have reviewed the redacted portions of closed session minutes previously opened for public inspection for the period of July 1995 through December 2015. These minutes with noted redactions were opened to the public by the board at various times from January 2012 to June 2017. The board finds that the need for confidentiality continues to exist for the redacted portions of these minutes, which portions will not be available for public inspection. Upon adoption of this motion, all existing closed session minutes from July 1995 through December 2015 will be available for public inspection with the continuing redactions noted.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays, and I believe Vice President Guzman has a motion, please.
Yes, I move that pursuant to Section 2.06D of the Open Meetings Act, the board members have reviewed closed session minutes for the period beginning January 2016 through June 2016. The board members have determined that the need for confidentiality does not exist as to these minutes, except as indicated in the redacted portions. Minutes were redacted for the following: A, privileged attorney-client communications; B, information subject to privacy or confidentiality protections in state or federal law; and C, information where the board determines it necessary to protect the public interest or the privacy of an individual. The board finds that the need for confidentiality as to the redacted material remains. Upon adoption of this motion, all closed session minutes from January 2016 through June 2016 with noted redactions will be available for public inspection.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays, and I believe Board Member Ward has a motion, please.
I move that the board adopt the minutes of the closed session meeting of December 6th, 2017. Board members have reviewed these minutes along with previously approved minutes of closed sessions from June 2016 through October 2017 in accordance with the Section 2.06D of the Open Meetings Act. Following this review, board members have determined that the need for confidentiality exists as to all closed session minutes from June 2016 through December 2017, and therefore these minutes will not be available for public inspection.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays, and I believe Vice President Guzman has a motion, please.
Yes, Section 2.06C of the Open Meetings Act permits the destruction of audio recordings of closed session meetings no less than 18 months after the completion of a meeting if the board has 1, approved the minutes of the closed meeting, and 2, approves the destruction. The board's closed session meetings from January 2016 until June 2016 occurred more than 18 months ago, and the board secretary maintains board-approved confidential minutes of all such closed sessions. I move that the audio recordings of the board's closed session meetings from January 2016 until June 2016, as itemized on the attached Appendix A, be authorized for destruction in accordance with the Open Meetings Act.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays, and I believe Board Member Furlong has a motion, please.
I move that the record of proceedings of the board meeting of December 6, 2017, prepared by the board secretary, be approved, and that such records of proceedings be posted on the Chicago Board of Education website in accordance with Section 2.06B of the Open Meetings Act.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Furlong?
Yes.
Vice President Guzman?
Yes.
Member Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
And President Clark?
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. President, I will now continue with real estate items. These items do require a vote, and they are: first report, disposition of bids received for the sale of property located at 517 to 535 North Parkside Avenue for former Francis Scott Key Elementary School. The second report is disposition of bids received for the sale of property commonly known as 8407 North Kerfoot Avenue for former Garrett A. Morgan Elementary School. I'm sorry, correction, 8407 South Kerfoot, for the former Garrett A. Morgan Elementary School. And the third report, disposition of bids received for the sale of surplus property at 7600 South Kedzie, and it's the northwest corner of 76th Street and Kedzie. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will now continue with items on the public agenda and only read the board report numbers since the titles and board reports appeared on the public agenda. I will begin with resolutions and one policy. These items do require a vote, and we have RS1. Moving on to RS2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We then have PO1, and Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will now continue with communications. These items do not require a vote. CO1 is the communication regarding the location of the board meeting for February 28, 2018. This is to advise that the regular meeting of the Board of Education scheduled for Wednesday, February 28, 2018 will be held at the CPS Loop Office, 42 West Madison Street, Garden Level Boardroom. The board meeting will begin at 10:30 a.m. and public participation guidelines are available on www.cpsboe.org or by calling the board office at 773-553-1600. For the February 28, 2018 board meeting, advance registration to speak and observe will be available beginning Monday, February 26 at 10:30 a.m. and will close on Tuesday, February 27th at 5 p.m. or until all slots are filled. You can advance register during the registration period by the following methods: online, by phone, or in person. And the public participation segment of the meeting will begin as indicated on the meeting agenda and proceed for no more than the 60 registered speakers. CO2, Mr. President, is the communication from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the comprehensive annual financial report of the board for fiscal year 2017. And it reads: the Office of the Senior Vice President of Finance has prepared the fiscal year 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report pursuant to Section 34-29 of the Illinois School Code. The board retained the independent certified accounting firm of RSM US LLP to audit the basic financial statements of the board as of and for fiscal years ended June 30th, 2017. Baker Tilly, Verkow, and Kraus has completed the audit and issued an unmodified report on the basic financial statements, which is included in the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Copies of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report have been distributed to the members of the board in advance of this meeting today, and the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report is being presented to and accepted by the board. The report will be filed with the official records of the board and transmitted to the mayor of the city of Chicago and the city council as required by law. Mr. President, I'll continue with additional items on the public agenda that do require a vote, and we have EX1 and EX2. And for the record, I would like to note an abstention for President Clark on EX2 for DePaul University as one of those listed on that report. Moving on to EX3, we then have FN1, ED1, PR1, PR2. Moving on to PR3, for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Board Member Ward on PR3 for AUSL. We then have PR4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote with the noted abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will continue with additional items on the public agenda that do not require a vote, and we have EX4 and AR1. Mr. President, these items just need to be accepted by the board.
Please mark received and filed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and there are no further items on the public agenda, Mr. President.
Good. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hines.
Thank you, Dr. Hines.